To find peace, you were told to get the right job, fix all your flaws, and have control over everything that happens. But if that worked, why does your mind keep racing at night? Even when there is no noise, why does your heart still feel heavy? No matter how much you do, why does stress never completely go away? The truth is, peace doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from how your mind makes sense of the world, not from how the world adapts to your mind. For over 2,500 years, Buddhism has been teaching this truth to people, not with big words, but with a quiet power. By being calm, by being mindful, by letting go. Something will change tonight. The noise in your head will begin to fade as these lessons progress. That need to fix, grab, and rush will become less intense. You will notice it, like a knot slowly untying, like water finally stopping its movement, like letting out a soft sigh after holding it in for too long. This isn't just another sound to help you sleep. It's medicine for the modern mind. A journey that takes you down ancient paths that transport you to the present, to a deep sleep, to lightness, to peace. Are you ready to return to your own home? Let's begin. Now that our minds are beginning to calm down, let's delve into the first opening. What path does not shout, but speaks louder when there is silence? Let's look for what most people don't hear, not because it's not there, but because they don't know how to listen. A sound comes from within, not from outside. There is no sound, no echo, no vibration. Yet it changes everything. Silence does not mean there is no sound. It is a state of consciousness. This is what Buddhist monks have learned to listen to throughout their lives. The bell makes no noise. It can only be heard when the mind is calm. It is not that the world is noisy where most people live. It is that their thoughts are noisy. The phone does not have to ring for the mind to check if it has received a call. The heart can feel pressure even when no one is speaking. This is the persecution, a mind that is not satisfied with conflict, meaning, and analysis. What does it mean that the study is over? Not because the answer has been found, but because there is no longer a need to know it. That is where you have to start. Buddhism does not see silence as muteness. There is no lack. There is an intense presence. It's like being in the forest and feeling that everyone is breathing without being able to say a word. It's like seeing the flicker of a candle in a dark room and realizing that the room wasn't really dark, but you couldn't see it because you were distracted. That's what happens when the mental chatter stops. Not only do you begin to perceive the outside world, but also the stillness beneath it, the clarity that has always been there, but was hidden by words. For life to speak your language, you have to train your mind to listen to what is not said. Life already speaks, it just doesn't always use words. A falling leaf, a slow breath, a pause in conversation. Most people don't notice it because they're too busy thinking about what to say next or how others see them. However, the silent bell doesn't care about those things. It's just there. And it rings as soon as you stop after the noise. That's why much of Buddhist training is based on silence, not the silence of a quiet place, but inner silence. When you stop clinging, your thoughts don't become boring. They change their sharpness. They begin to pick up on subtleties, feelings that have no name, and facts that don't need to be expressed. It's not the big revelations that prove you're wise, but the small changes, like the way you breathe, the way you wait, and the way you choose not to respond. Many people think that meditation is just about relaxing, but if it were just about being calm, anyone could lie down and stare at their phone. Meditation that works teaches the mind to stop without losing focus, to truly listen without thinking, to make room for the unknown. That kind of silence changes not only how you feel, but also how you see the world. Think about how strange it is to sit and be without grouping things together, labeling them, or trying to fix them. That's what it means to listen to the gong without any sound. A mind that doesn't have to understand everything to be okay. It's a deep effort to forget. Years of trying to control the world by thinking too much are finally coming to light. This doesn't mean that being silent makes things better. What it means is that it changes your relationship with problems. A noisy mind fights the truth. A quiet mind joins it. When this happens, you don't need to get rid of your worries. They simply disappear because there is no longer any resistance. Things may remain the same, but the inner struggle does not disappear. A Zen master once said that silence is the best teacher because it shows you everything you are. If you sit in silence for a long time, it will show you how restless you are. It will show you how scared you are if you stay longer. If you stay even longer, it will show you freedom, because silence showed you that you didn't need to ask the questions in the first place, not because it gave you answers. Many people fear silence because it exposes their mind, but that is the key. What is seen can be softened. What is hidden continues to dominate. Don't reject your thoughts if they come to mind when there is silence. They say things, but don't believe them. Listen to them to see the patterns. Notice how often they repeat the same thing and how little they change. Then let them go, like clouds in the sky, like the wind in the trees. There is no need to fight or hold on. Noble silence, not just quiet words, but also a quiet ego, is one of the most important practices in Buddhism. A quiet personality, a quiet need to show yourself. That is where peace begins. They do not close themselves off from the world, but they stop wanting it to be better than it is. This is what wordless silence teaches. It does nothing but be there and watch everything pass by. Stopping every impulse of thought is what it means to listen to what is not said. Not because thinking is bad, but because not all thoughts are good. Some are echoes, old writings, fears from the past. They don't need to be fixed. They were just heard, acknowledged, and given permission to go. The mind is like a room full of radios. There is a thought, a feeling, or a memory on every station. The volume of each is how most people try to deal with the noise, but the buttons are not where the practice is. It comes from taking a step back, realizing that the radios do not make the room what it is. The chatter was always there, but so was the silence. It is not something that is created, but something that is found. You'll notice something strange as you discover it. Peace doesn't shout. People don't buy it. It doesn't beg you to pay attention to it. That's why it's overlooked. But once you feel it, it draws you in. The longer you stay in it, the more you want to stay. Not because it's fun, but because it brings you back to yourself. Everything else begins to soften as that return happens. and the verdicts. Those urgencies, the need to control everything all the time. They don't disappear immediately, but they lose their grip. Because nothing can remain silent, not even fear. It becomes transparent, and because it is transparent, it loses its power. Silence is not the absence of something, but the presence of everything, said the great Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh. That phrase alone is a lesson. The mind sees more when it is silent, not less. Not less, but more. It understands by being in touch, not by thinking about it. With the air, right now, with life as it is, without filters. There is no need to rush. The silent gong does not work when you want it to. Wait until you are ready. Wait until there is no longer any need to do anything. Until you are ready to be silent for the simple sake of being silent, and not trying to use it to get somewhere else. And when you surrender, calm begins to arrive, not as a reward, but as the ground you've always stood on and the sky you've always seen. It's just that the argument was too loud for you to hear it. Tonight, let that chatter end. Put an end to theories. Listen with your mind, but not in search of solutions. Instead, listen to the space where questions disappear. That area is sacred. That empty space is clear. That's where the bell that makes no sound rings. The mind is now more open after being silent for a while. Now we encounter the next storm, which is not one of sound, but of speed. Because after silence comes haste, not the speed of life itself, but the stress of having to keep up, fix, chase, and solve things. The sense of urgency that says, this has to be done now, even if it's not true. Now is the time to delve into that fantasy and dismantle it piece by piece. Some people feel a rush that isn't really dangerous. It's just a habit. A learned speed that makes you feel like you're always behind, that you're missing out on something, and that you're just one task away from peace. This is the false sense of urgency. It seems real, but it's not. A mental habit formed over years of repeating to ourselves that speed, action, and weakness are what makes something valuable. This restlessness is called tanha in Buddhism, which means thirst or craving. Not just for things, but also for endings, next steps, and always being on the move. But that thirst takes hold of you when it's not questioned. It makes you overthink, which can lead to worry and exhaustion. That's why many people lie in bed with their minds racing, not because there's work to be done, but because the mind feels it should stop. Today, people often praise urgency. People praise busyness. People love to be productive. But Buddhism differs in a quiet way. It shows that painful things happen when people move quickly without thinking. It causes people to act out of fear, worry, or the false belief that peace will come once everything is resolved. When does that ever make sense? That moment never comes because life always goes on. It is always replaced by something new. One more thing to do, one more worry, one more demand. This is where the real practice begins, not by managing more, but by thinking less. As I watched my mind scream, "Now," I asked it quietly, "Is this really important? What would happen if I didn't respond right away? What if this feeling isn't the truth, but just an old alarm that has been instilled in me over the years?" On the Buddhist path, you don't do the most urgent things to combat urgency. You know what needs to be done, and you do it. It's like watching a wave approach without trying to get ahead of it. Just watch it rise, watch it pass, because necessity reveals itself when you see it clearly. It's not always a real necessity. It's just a bubble of air, a sketch, an urge to speed up instead of slowing down. That's why monks take their time. That's why traditions slow down. That's why you have to savor tea instead of gulping it down. Every movement sends a message. This is not an emergency. The mind doesn't have to spin quickly, even if the world does. You always have a choice. You can stop. You can go back. You can act from the center, not from fear. This pause is powerful. It changes how we relate to the outside world, not because the outside world itself changes. Instead of being carried away by the pressure of time, the practitioner becomes a spectator. They see the pull, feel the push, and then they don't move. They become. It's just breathing. In that moment, time stretches out. The pressure begins to disappear, and the lie begins to crumble. Timing is one of the best things about being mindful. It's not about being fast. It's about being right. Knowing when to do something and when to wait. How to speak and listen at the right moment. How to move forward and how to stay still. But the right moment only comes when there is silence, in the present, slowly. This is what takes away our rush, clarity. When you feel like you need to act quickly, take a moment to breathe. Just a moment. Breathe deeply. Not to fix anything, not to run away, just to break the spell. Breathe. It's the first step out of the dream. Because no lie can last when the truth is known. This one in particular, impulse is great for false crises, but awareness slows down progress. It makes you think. It's good for you. And most of the time, when you look, you see that there's no fire, just smoke, just a habit. Just be afraid of dressing up in important clothes. Slowing down is not a sign of defeat. It means making a clear decision. It means acting when your mind is calm, not when it is confused. Buddhism teaches that what is important is to act correctly, not to act quickly. The right thing comes from calmness, from knowing, from a mind that is not rushing to get anywhere. Many people confuse emotion with urgency. When people rush, they think it shows they care. But need is not love. It is stress. It is being attached to outcomes. Love can move slowly. Desire can wait. But urgency demands. It impacts. It tells you that everything will fall apart if you don't do something soon. That's lying out of fear, not the truth. The most subtle message of Buddhism is that you can't have peace and urgency at the same time. Your nervous system tenses up when you feel rushed. It makes your heart beat faster. It shortens your breath. It tightens your body. But peace grows. It opens your chest. It relaxes your gaze. It makes you breathe more slowly. That's why every break is a return to peace, a silent protest against a world that loves to rush. This doesn't mean you're no longer responsible. To stop responding out of obligation is to understand this. It means you do what needs to be done from a center, not from a place of chaos. Everything changes because of that shift. How things feel and how they get done. The Buddhist teacher Ajahn Chah once said, "If it's important, it can wait." At first glance, it seems true, but read it again. What's important now can wait, because without rushing, there is chaos. And when you wait, even if it's just a breather, things become clear again. That is the power of moving slower. It won't make your life longer. It gives it to you, completely. Be mindful, moment by moment. People often lose sight of where they are in their rush to get ahead, and there is no other place to find peace. Let the world go fast. Let the alarms ring. Let time run out. But don't leave. Hold your breath. In this stillness, because you have to believe something is urgent for it to work. It stops being urgent the moment you stop believing it. And what remains is peace, being there, living with tranquility. Few monks believe that time curves around consciousness, that time moves more slowly when the mind is calm. And when things move slowly, they become clear. It is easier to make decisions. The words of the heart are stronger, the body softens, and life stops moving so fast and feels as if it can be touched. This is the inner pressure that calms down, the peace that does not wait for calm, but brings it. It is here, now, by seeing through the pressure, not by running away from it. Like smoke dissipating in the morning sun, so tonight, let the need to rush arise and then let it go. Don't follow it. Don't fight it. Observe it. Let it go. The air will remain. The moment will remain. That is the truth. That is where peace lives. The next step will come, not because it has to, but because it is true. Now that there is less sense of urgency and the mind is not racing against time, you are on the verge of a greater sense of freedom, a kind of freedom that comes from holding on to less rather than doing less. Now is the time to focus on thought itself, not to shut it down or fight it, but to see it clearly. So you don't have to hold on to it, fix it, or judge it as it rises and falls. The next step is not to control your thoughts, but to let them float. There is a way of looking at thoughts that changes the way you interact with your mind. It's not about knowing every thought, but about knowing what thoughts are in general. They are fleeting. They have no form. They are transient, like clouds moving across the sky. They begin, they move, and they end, and none of them is the sky. In the same way, thoughts are not the mind itself. What you feel is not the truth. Nothing feels good forever. Buddhism does not tell the mind to stop thinking, but teaches people to stop clinging. This is a subtle practice. It is not loud like effort. It is silent, like being aware. It begins with a breath. A thought arises. There is a response. However, awareness does not grab it or connect with it, but takes a step back. It can see the thought. It is like a soft label that gives it a name without becoming it. Sadness, restlessness, excitement, uncertainty. And when named, the idea loses its weight. It becomes a visitor rather than a command. Most people suffer not because of their thoughts, but because they confuse themselves with them. They believe that every thought, every inner word must be believed, and that every fear must be pushed away. However, thoughts are not facts, they are ideas. You can see stories without living them. This is where the art of cloud watching begins, observing without assimilating. When you look without responding, letting the story pass without being part of it. Thoughts will say, "You're not good enough." Consciousness will say, "That's a thought." Thoughts will whisper, "Something bad is going to happen." Consciousness will say, "That's a prediction." Thoughts will shout, Fix it now. Consciousness stops and simply breathes. Peace begins in this space between thought and self. The problem is not usually the thought itself, but the idea that the thought is unique, permanent, or proof of who you are. Pema Chodron, a Buddhist teacher, says that feelings are like the weather in many ways. Some days it storms, other days it clears up. However, the sky doesn't try to stop the rain. It doesn't panic when clouds start to form. It doesn't move. The mind can learn this too. Stay, watch, remain the same. It's not about disconnecting, but connecting without merging. It's being able to feel everything without being absorbed by it. People see, accept, and embrace their sadness. However, they don't confuse it with their identity. People are afraid, but they don't give in to it. Judgment arises, but the self doesn't crumble because of it. There is peace in this kind of understanding, not because the mind is blank, but because the heart no longer clings. Watching the clouds is working on detachment. It's not being cold. It's not closing yourself off. It's a quiet space. You need enough space between you and your thoughts to breathe, make a decision, and see. When you do this, everything moves more slowly. Although time does not change, the need to act diminishes. Thought loses its authoritative tone and merges with the background. You don't have to respond, but you hear it. When you cling too tightly, even good thoughts can become chains. These clouds look like targets. I must be smart. I should be better. And this shouldn't be happening. They seem like good news. However, they continue to block the sky. Buddhism does not teach people to hold on to good thoughts more than bad ones, but to free themselves from both. Because being free does not mean choosing better chains. The idea is to walk without ties. When you practice this technique in silence, it goes deeper. Sit down, look, don't follow your thoughts, don't reject them, let them come, let them go. Don't change the rhythm of your mind, just feel it. Thoughts will beg to be heard, some will beg to be solved, others will tempt you with stories of goodness or evil. Let them all speak, let them go. Eventually, something peaceful begins to emerge from all of this. There has always been silence, but no one has noticed it. It wasn't missing. It's just that people were always paying attention to something else. This silence does not want your loyalty. It does not need you to protect it. It is not there. It is like the air between the clouds, like a sky that does not move. Thoughts are not enemies, and tranquility is not failure. This is what the art of detachment shows us. You don't lose your mind when you let go of a thought. You simply return to it, seeing clearly without adding anything, living without being pushed in a million different directions. Being there can be stronger than words, even when they are strong, not in size, but in how stable it is. Someone once told me, "You are not your thoughts." And I think that's when true calm begins, not just knowing it. The story goes haywire when the viewer wakes up, and when the story goes haywire, the pain disappears. Not immediately, but always, as if the fog dissipates with the sun. When you train this way, your thoughts don't stop. They keep coming, but you no longer become them. Even if you're angry, it doesn't overwhelm you. Worry may get worse, but it doesn't stop you. Jealousy may whisper, but it says nothing, because you're no longer in the thought. You're there to observe. How spacious it is, the freedom. You can practice this anytime, in the middle of a crowd, in the middle of an argument, in the middle of a racing heart. Take a break. Breathe deeply. Watch the mind. Don't get in the way. Just be there. That's the art. That's the freedom. The mind floats even when you are asleep. Dreams are just thoughts in disguise. People who observe, on the other hand, can also remain still. And the inner climate does not matter so much as this knowledge grows. It rains and then clears up. But there is peace, not because everything is fine, but because people remember the sky. Thoughts can be seen as passing clouds, and the sky of consciousness begins to grow larger. Now, something even deeper begins to move. It is the moment itself, not as a thought or a background, but as something sacred. And force is not the way to deal with it. It is through respect, through an inner bending, not of giving up, but of remaining still, because presence does not disappear when power is lost. It becomes stronger. Control is a skill we are born with. Control over outcomes, over how others see you, over your own thoughts, and over your actions. It starts early and is no longer visible. People learn to guess what could go wrong, to stop it, and to prepare for it. However, we are not taught that most pain comes from trying to control something that should never have been controlled. Buddhism does not punish this impulse, but weakens it, and instead of chaos, it brings respect. Bowing to the moment is not a ritual, it is a way of thinking, a way of facing life without armor, of simply being there without asking for things to change. Being strong in this way is being gentle, the kind that bends gracefully when the wind blows. And that reverence brings us back to an old truth. Being humble does not mean being weak. It makes sense, a clear mind that emerges when you stop fighting the truth and start accepting it. Control narrows your vision. It turns every moment into a problem. It categorizes life according to hope. But respect makes us more aware. It lets the moment speak for itself, not with words, but with presence, a breath, a pause in conversation, the feel of the ground when you walk barefoot. These aren't accidents, they're calls to action, and when treated with respect, they become lessons. It's not because it's a secret that most people miss the present moment. It's because they judge it. When it arrives, the mind immediately analyzes it to see if it's good or bad, useful or useless. Does it help me achieve my goal? But bowing down doesn't mean any of that. When the moment no longer has to earn its place, people bow down. You can do it completely, even when things are difficult, even more so when they are difficult. Jack Cornfield, a Buddhist teacher, once said, "Peace comes when our hearts open to whatever is." This is what bowing means, not liking everything, not agreeing with it, but being open to it, letting the moment be what it is before trying to change it. Because every moment is different. It has its own flavor. Some are warm, some are intense, some don't make sense, but each one can lead to stillness if you face it without fighting. In real life, this means not having to control arguments so much, fixing others, guessing what's going to happen. It means being aware of small reactions, like the urge to correct, defend, or interrupt someone. Instead, I will breathe. I will wait. I will be silent. Bowing means silence where there was noise before, the place where there was struggle before, kindness where there was anger before. This change does not mean inaction. It means being responsive rather than reactive. It means choosing to be present rather than scared. It is only possible to make that choice when you feel reverence, not just as a thought. For now, a silent awe. There is trust that even this, whatever it is, belongs. Control says, "This shouldn't be happening." Reverence says, "This is happening." With that simple shift, the heart stops preparing to beat faster. Thoughts stop spinning. Life is allowed to be as it is without perfecting it. That's when it stops raining. Not because the wind dies down, but because the mind stops trying to fight against time. Think about how authority often resembles care. The parent who watches over everything because they love their children, the boss who drives their employees crazy out of fear, the friend who gives advice before listening. They all have good intentions at first, but they don't understand the essential. Reverence, on the other hand, does the opposite. It listens, it looks around, it has space. In that space, something smarter can emerge. Even cleaning the floor is considered sacred in Buddhist temples, not because of the dust, but because of the time. That's what respect is all about, being willing to treat everything as worthy at times. The everyday becomes brilliant. The everyday becomes a temple. People don't just bow before sculptures. It becomes a way for the soul to move through the world. In your own life, this might mean taking a moment to calm down before responding to a difficult message, waiting for the silence to finish its thought before offering answers. You can walk more slowly without thinking about what you are doing. Be sad without having to name it or push it away immediately. Surrendering to the present moment means being okay with not knowing, to let the mystery remain unsolved, to allow the present moment to be enough. And when this begins to take root, a new kind of strength emerges. Not the strength to win, but the strength to surrender without falling apart. The courage to believe that life will work out even if you can't control everything. That's what reverence teaches you. It teaches you to trust the present, not destiny. Respect can only exist in the present moment. The past is too set in stone. The future is unclear, but the present moment is alive. It moves. It wants your attention. It grows when treated with respect. Not because it turns out the way you wanted, but because it is seen in its entirety. In this way, bowing becomes something you do every day, something that doesn't need chants or smoke. It just needs to be known. When coffee spills on the floor, when things go wrong in a meeting, when the child cries, when the plan falls apart. Bow, not physically but inside. Say yes, even if not out loud, even if you tremble, because there is power in saying yes. There is grace. It is silent. Very gently, Buddhism tells us that we don't have to fight against life. The storm may get worse. It is possible to lose. Many unknowns may arise. However, the mind can deal with them in different ways, not with a clenched fist, but with an open palm, with your head bowed and your breathing calm. And confusion loses its intensity when people bow. So tonight, when your mind starts to wander and you feel the need to plan, fix, or fight, stop. Don't argue with it. The tiredness, the thinking, the pain in your heart, how soft it is. Take a deep breath and bow your head, with your silence, with all my trust. Don't fight against time. Use it to teach you. When you surrender to the moment, you gain a quiet strength, not the kind that clings to principles, but the kind that moves, the kind that can give and not break. Now, that strength begins to manifest itself. It doesn't look like a defense or armor. Its shape resembles bamboo, an image of what the mind can become when it stops hardening and begins to bend. Because the mind is stronger when it can move with life, not against it, just like bamboo. Some types of toughness don't make noise. They don't control or force. What stands in its way is not crushed. It absorbs it. It changes. It bends. This is the principle of bamboo, or the feeling of not fighting back, where strength is not measured by how much you can control, but by how much you can endure without falling. When there is a storm, bamboo does not break because it knows how to bend. It moves. It changes. The wind can pass through it without slowing down. That is something the mind can learn to do. When feelings intensify, when things don't go as planned, when someone else's anger makes you want to stay calm, there is another way, a kinder way, a way that doesn't require hiding or giving up, but being present without resistance. Non-resistance is not the same as inaction in Buddhism. It is living. It means being in touch with reality as it is, not as your mind wants it to be. It is not about being okay with everything. It is about staying healthy. And the mind is like bamboo. Once it learns to bend, it cannot be broken. There is always a choice when something bad happens. You can give in and feel the weight of the struggle, or you can give in and feel the space within you change. The pain may still be there. Things may not get better. But the way you relate to it changes. What you once felt as stress becomes a teacher, not because there is less pain, but because the mind has stopped fighting. This change doesn't have to be perfect. It starts with small details, a moment of tension in traffic, not getting along at work, changes of plans that catch you by surprise. These aren't interruptions, they're requests. Each one asks you, are you going to get rigid or are you going to give in? Are you going to break or are you going to bend? You don't have to lose yourself to give in. It means going back to who you are, letting go of the false selves that say, I always have to be right. I always have to be in control. Those are the weak parts of my mind. I must never feel uncomfortable. The parts that break when they are pushed. However, the inner self is adaptable. It's the self that observes without attachment. That part of you bends like bamboo. Giving up fixed dates is also part of being flexible. Structure is good for the mind. Deadlines, plans and hopes. But life isn't like a movie. It unfolds. It hurts the mind that clings when those plans fall apart. But a mind that bends changes. It doesn't go against the flow, but moves with it. It listens. It becomes smarter. In new places, it finds its balance. This freedom makes you mentally stronger, not by avoiding problems, but by being able to face them without giving up. Like bamboo, which doesn't become stronger in perfect conditions, but by being exposed to the wind, bearing weight and moving. The mind is the same. In consciousness, the more it bends, the more stable it becomes. That's not what you'll find in resistance. It's found in movement, in being ready to be fully present in change, in saying yes to the process, not to the pain, in believing that even bending can help you move forward. How wise? In Buddhist writings, the wise mind is often compared to water, but bamboo conveys the same message. Both change, both go together. Neither maintains its shape by force, but by working with its surroundings, not by improving the world, but by making the mind that faces it more flexible. Don't expect things to turn out a certain way if you want to live by the concept of bamboo. It means learning to act instead of reacting, turning without being scared, keeping your roots without hardening. This is something you can work on every day by changing how you listen, accept, and wait before responding. Giving up the struggle also means giving up judgment. A struggling mind often makes harsh judgments. It wants to be sure. It wants everything labeled, grouped, and fixed. But a flexible mind doesn't have to jump to conclusions. It can remain not knowing, but it can endure a paradox. It can remain calm in the face of chaos. That's what makes it strong. Zen says, "Let the muddy water settle and clarity will appear." But you can't force the water to settle. It calms down when left alone. The mind is the same. It begins to reflect when it stops trying to control every wave. Now it is clear. Stay calm. Be strong in your stillness. Forgiving yourself is part of adapting to reality. Perfectionism is a way of fighting against yourself. It makes it harder to breathe. It narrows your focus. It makes you feel like you're never good enough. But self-compassion changes that story. This moment is enough, it says. And when you say, "I am enough," you release energy. Peace returns. There is no strength in someone who doesn't move. It's in the smart person who moves, who struggles to dance, who chooses humility over gritting their teeth. Once you feel this choice, it becomes a habit, a way of being, a more powerful kind of strength. This rule still applies when you are sad. Pain is not a wave you can fight against. You must bow to the tide. Let it pass without getting stuck. Feel the loss without hardening your heart. The mind that bows to sadness is still human. It is still kind. And over time, it begins to heal. The bamboo mind does not fight worry when it arises. It looks around, it breathes, it lets the stress remain there without amplifying it. The entire nervous system changes because of this. It goes from reacting to controlling, from being closed to being open. When you practice being open over and over again, it becomes the norm. You don't have to avoid falling ever. The key is not to break when you do. That's the beauty of this technique. A life more like a river and less like a struggle. Go with the flow. Take each turn with interest, not force. Enjoy each moment without tensing up. Let your body settle into this truth tonight. Don't try to move your breath. As you think, feel, and perceive something new, let your mind bend gently. Don't try to stop it. Don't push. Just bend. Breathe deeply. The mind begins to strengthen as it learns to flex like bamboo. This strength manifests itself both in the way thoughts are faced and in the way the body feels. Because there is something even more solid than the thoughts and sensations that arise within. The body, the air, the ground you walk on. Everything begins to slow down when awareness finally reaches this foundation. This is not achieved through thinking, but through feeling. This is where we feel the ground within us. The body is intelligent in a silent way that speaks before the mind can understand. This thing does not fight, explain, or use words. It simply appears. It knows. It means. Most people do not hear this phrase because they are too busy thinking. Buddhism, on the other hand, says that the body is not something that gets in the way of concentration, but a gateway to it. A way to achieve tranquility that does not need to be resolved, only felt. To develop somatic awareness, you have to direct your attention downward. Get out of your story and into your breath. Get out of your reasoning and feel your pulse. It means being able to feel your feet when you stand. Notice how heavy your hands feel. Pay attention to the soft rumbling in your chest when you are happy, sad, scared, or calm. These are not just signals, they are also supports. When your mind is racing, returning to your body is the way to calm down. You don't need to know a lot. Start small. Feel how your back feels against the chair, the way the air touches your face, the strength your body feels when it touches the ground. You don't normally think about these things, but they are always there, even if they never say anything. It's not because they tell you, but because you are giving your mind something solid to lean on. That's why many Buddhist groups emphasize the importance of being aware of the body. Thoughts move quickly, but the body remains still. Thoughts jump around in time. They go back to the past and fast forward, but the body is still alive. Now, the nervous system reacts when you really feel it. The heart beats slower. Breathing becomes deeper. The jaw relaxes, not because of changes in the outside world, but because people have become more aware at home. Feeling the ground within you is remembering that safety was never part of the plan. It was always there. That calmness is not about being in control, but about being in touch. Heaven and earth do not fight. They hold everything. This is also something the body can do. You can feel things in it. It can hold your thoughts. It can hold fear. And it does not overwhelm you when handled with awareness. It's not about getting away from thoughts. It's about getting to the roots. Thoughts will continue to flow. Thoughts feel lighter when attention is on the body. They don't stick as well. They behave better in exams. Because the mind is not trying to calm itself by thinking. To achieve calm, it is looking for its way. Listening to the body is a good habit to get into. Starting with the feet, putting each toe on the floor, feeling warmth, cold, and tension, slowly moving up, knees, shin bones, knees. Observe without correcting or judging. Be here and now. The energy of the whole system has changed when the information reaches the head. Thoughts make less noise. It's easier to manage emotions. It's not so much like a storm in my mind, but more like the sky again. This works really well when you feel anxious, because worry makes you think more deeply. In loops, stories, and fear, you feel like your body is pulling you down. Breathe. Pull yourself together, right now. There is less fear when you feel fully present. Not because fear is bad, but because it is seen clearly, handled gently, and based on knowledge. This works even when you're sad. The pain isn't just in your head. It stays in your chest, around your shoulders, in your throat. Crying somatically means letting your body cry, shake, and breathe. Not to make a scene, but to be honest. The body knows what it's losing, even if the mind doesn't. And the body begins to heal when it's allowed to feel. Being connected to your body also changes how you relate to others. You're less likely to project when you're in touch with your own feelings. You pay more attention. You react less. It's possible to hear what someone says without taking it personally. They are saying that your heart is not in your thoughts, but in your body, where you breathe. That is where kindness grows. Not just in theory, but in real life. Everyday life also changes with this presence. Feeling the water as you wash your hands is like meditating. When you savor every bite, you are eating mindfully. When you feel your feet touch the ground, walking becomes a practice. These aren't very difficult skills. They're easy, but they're powerful because they take you back to the only place where peace has ever been found, your mind. If you touch the earth within you, what does that have to do with enlightenment? The answer is everything. Because knowledge is not an idea. It connects you directly to life. It is all that exists now. It is not an idea of presence, but the actual experience of it. The body is the bridge. That is why monks do not wear shoes. That is why people bow at the beginning of traditions. That's why breathing is always important. It has nothing to do with habit. It has to do with embodiment. The sacred is not in the sky. Where your foot touches the ground is where it hurts. Between inhaling and exhaling. Between being awake and feeling your heartbeat. That's where peace resides. You don't need anything new to practice this. You don't have to get into a special posture. You don't have to find a special place. You just have to pay attention. You just have to be willing to feel without running away. When stress builds up, you have to go into it. When you feel numb, don't move. The body will speak. Sometimes with heat, sometimes with pain, sometimes in silence. But it will always speak. And listening to it is the first step toward freedom. What do you want to free yourself from? From the prison of your own thoughts, from the cycle of overthinking, from the misconception that getting rid of all your thoughts will bring you peace. Thoughts do not bring peace. It is in the things that contain the thoughts. The air, your belly, your heartbeat, the way your hand presses against your leg. These are sacred guides, not distractions. Little by little, make people more aware of this. There's no need to rush. Every time you come back to your body, you'll get better at being present. The habit of safety. This is the habit of being centered. Over time, this changes everything. Because a stable mind doesn't collapse when things get tough. It doesn't stray or scatter. It feels where it is and knows where it is. So tonight, let your mind settle. Let it rest to the rhythm of your breath. It should listen to the silence of the bones. You are the only thing that has always been stable, so let it feel that. In the unshakable silence that lies beneath the thoughts. As you become more aware of your body and your breath, you can follow a path that leads you deeper into something even more refined. Beneath feelings, moods, and even the act of perceiving, there is a point that remains still. A middle ground. a flame that does not flicker or jump. You do not maintain the silence. The stillness maintains you. It is known as samadhi, a level of concentration so stable that everyone stops talking. The mind begins to rest for the first time, a peace that does not come from running away or being comfortable. It comes from focusing on one thing, one thought that is not lost, a mind that learns to be still. Samadhi is not a magical trance. It is a vision without superfluous elements. When the mind surrenders completely to the present and forgets how to divide itself, this is what happens. The mind is often pulled in 1,000 different directions during everyday life. Even when there is no sound, it jumps from one memory to a worry and from one thought to another. This is normal, but also very exhausting, because a divided mind can never be at peace. It never achieves anything. It is always floating, always searching, always a little distant. But samadhi eliminates that space. All thoughts come together in one breath, in one moment, until nothing else can be heard. It doesn't mean the end of the world. It means that the mind is moving away from it. And when you stop, the inner noise begins to fade away. The mind is silent, not because it has been shut down, but because it is interested. The flame of concentration slowly and steadily draws the mind inward until it can draw it no further. The exercise begins with something simple: breathing. Notice the inhalation. Feel the exhalation. Directly, not mentally. Completely, without dividing. At first, the mind will wander. There is no need for it to do so. The key is to return. Bring it back every time it wanders away, not with anger or shame, but with love. The practice is not about staying perfectly in place. The practice is about coming back again and again until staying feels normal. The time between thoughts lengthens over time. Distractions become less distracting. The mind begins to calm down. Now there is a kind of stillness that does not depend on silence. Sati remains even when there is a lot of noise, like a faint flame in a windless room, bright, still, unobtrusive. This approach is not forced. You can do it. It arises on its own when the mind finds something important to focus on. Most of the time in Buddhism, it is about the breath, but it can also be a sensation, a sound, or a phrase. Something easy, anything that remains fixed. The object is not important. What matters is the friendship. It's not enough to look at the air. You have to write it down. It takes over your life until all that's left is presence. Thoughts move more slowly in this state. Feelings calm down. The sense of identity begins to fade. Not completely, of course, but in a way that makes you feel free. The boundaries that normally feel so narrow, being aware of myself, my plans, and my history all the time, begin to blur. And as things soften, peace emerges. Not the kind you achieve, but the kind you see when all the junk disappears. Samadhi doesn't isolate you from the world. The world can pass through it. Sound is there, but it doesn't draw you in. Sensation is there, but it doesn't bother you. Awareness remains the same. Present. Still. And this stability is good for you. It gives your brain and nerves a break. It's good for your heart. It allows your mind to remember what it's like to feel whole. This habit also changes the way you live your daily life. When you focus more, you become more aware of every movement. You eat mindfully. You speak carefully. You don't walk in a hurry. It's not because you want to be spiritual, but because your mind is less cluttered. Everything is one, and that unity turns everyday events into moments of meditation. This doesn't mean you'll never have thoughts again, but they no longer have power over you. They don't attract you as quickly as they used to. You can see them. You can see them go away. But you don't follow them. You don't fight them. You stay. And staying becomes a force. As soon as you abandon something, such as the present moment, your breath, or yourself, you begin to suffer. Samadhi changes that habit. It brings you back. One of the most important effects is that it changes the way we see things. Everything is better when there is no mental noise. Colors are more vivid. Sounds are clearer. Sensations are more intense. When sensations arise, they are felt more deeply, but not as much as before. Because they don't envelop you, you observe them from a place of silence, and what you see changes everything. Samadhi is one of the 3 parts of the path in Buddhist teachings. The other 2 are ethics and concentration. Concentration is in the middle. It is the bridge. Without it, knowledge is just knowledge. It turns knowledge into experience. You don't just know that connection hurts. You can feel how it hinders your concentration. You don't just believe in change. You see it in the way each breath leaves before you can hold it. This mind is like a flame that does not flicker. A mind so stable that nothing can move it. Not because it is strong, but because it is rooted. Because it has nothing to protect. There is no story to keep. Don't run away. It is what it is. And the truth manifests itself in that being. To improve at this, learn through your breath. Follow the rhythm, not as a method, but as a place to go. Each inhale is a return. As you exhale, you let go. Don't push. Don't hold on. Don't give up. Let it draw you in, past the stress of the day and into the center of calm that lies beneath. That is, if your mind wanders, bring it back. If your feelings intensify, stay where you are. If a thought demands your attention, give it attention and then come back. The return is what gives you power. Calmness is in making a decision, over and over again. The mind will not leave until one day, without warning, it stays. And when it stays, the light remains steady. The storm has passed. The stillness that remains is not empty. It is alive. The goal is not to achieve samadhi. That is what it is. This is where compassion arises most easily. It is easier to make decisions. More often, joy arises, not because of something external to you, but because you are calm inside. You stop reacting so much. You are not so rigid. You are more open, more aware. I think that's why great teachers sit still for hours. They don't run away from life. They come closer to it. They don't run away from thoughts. They sit with them. And this rest makes you wise. That silence makes you strong, not the kind of loud strength, but the kind that remains calm when everything else is shaking. Let your mind wander around this place tonight. It should be calm, without any effort. Bring it to the center with your breath. Let the spark hold steady on its own, without your help, as long as you don't touch it. Hold on to this silence as you fall asleep. As you rest, let it grow stronger. Once the flame of samadhi has calmed down and the mind has learned to rest in constant attention, something surprising emerges. Peace and silence do not have to be silent and still. There can be calm in the midst of chaos, not as a conflict, but as a safe place to be. And that safe place is not in a temple in the middle of nowhere. It comes from within, breath by breath. This is the refuge of a breath, where being present brings back simplicity instead of loneliness. When you let go of everything else, a certain concentration occurs. It's not that life becomes easier, it's that the mind stops complicating it. A monastery has always been a quiet, religious, and orderly place that softens the heart and strengthens the spirit. But you don't need silence or stone walls to find it. You just need help. Because a breath, felt and lived fully, becomes a temple, not built with bricks, but with the fact of being there. The things that surround most people think they bring them peace. A clean room, a quiet house. It's not very difficult. But that peace is not strong. It depends on what you cannot change. The noise of the world will return. Needs will arise again. However, the breath is always there. It doesn't need everything to be perfect. It just wants to be felt. Returning to the breath is like returning to basics. It's not the ease of having to do less, but the ease of simply being here, of stopping the chatter of thoughts, of letting go of tasks, identity, and time constraints. You're not rejecting life, you're deeply embracing it as it is. Breathe in, breathe out. Nothing has changed, nothing has been taken away. Often, the mind complicates things. It adds layers, thoughts, plans. It invents stories and fears to fill the time between breaths. But what remains after letting go of all that is pure? It doesn't have to be very good. It just has to be real. The smell is sincere. It doesn't lie. It just shows what's there. Breathing acts as an aid in this regard. Like a teacher, like a friend. One who never leaves, never complains, and never asks for anything. It just gives. And the gift is easy. You just have to give it back. Think again. Overcome fear. Come back from the break. Bring yourself back to the present moment, to this person, to this breath. That's all. When you come back, a sacred place opens up. You can find this place anywhere. On a crowded train, in a busy office, in the middle of a heated argument. Breathing can work even when things aren't going well. It just needs your attention. And when you keep your attention on it, breathing becomes a monastery. A place where time stands still and the world keeps moving. A place where the storm continues, but the center remains steady. This doesn't mean that your breath becomes a place to hide. It becomes a powerful place. A place where you can stop reacting, clear your thoughts, and make decisions based on presence rather than worry. You don't go there to avoid life. You go there to be more fully present in it, without the noise, the whirlwind, and the incessant striving. You can quickly return to this inner monastery. Take a deep breath. That's all it takes. One conscious breath. One slow exhale. Not to do anything, but to remember. To remember that there is peace. We just talked about it, and your breath proves it. This exercise changes the way you deal with pain over time. You no longer need a pleasant moment to be calm, because now what gives you peace is being present, not pleasure. When you are afraid, sad, or overwhelmed, your breath can be your friend. You can change the way you face the outside world, not the world itself. This practice is great because it's easy for anyone to do. You don't have to work long hours. You don't have to stand up straight. You don't have to be silent. Pay attention. All you need is the determination to stop running away, to stop trying to improve, to stop trying so hard to fix things. Instead, feel, stay, breathe. That's where healing begins. Being with what is, without fighting it, without solving all our problems. This is gently taught by the breath. Each inhalation opens, each exhalation releases. Together, they create a rhythm, a place to live, a safe place. Although monks live in stone temples, we all have a monastery within us, made with care, bound together by simplicity, secure with the breath. It is yours, and no one can take it away from you. It is not noise. Do not be afraid. Do not stress. It is not outside of you. It is you. It is the part of you that remains still. There is no rush. You do not need anything else. When you live like this, everyday things become sacred practices. Washing a dish, getting in the car, waiting in a room. They become moments of being there, opportunities to come back. They are all doorways. Each one gives you the chance to stop, breathe, and remember that you are already home. You can't enter this house. It can't be burned down. It can't be stolen. Because no things were ever used to build it. It arose from consciousness, from stillness, because they were ready to stop running and start listening. Breathing is also very important, both for truth and for peace. The truth is that nothing has to change for peace to return, that there is a place that is unaffected by sadness, stress, or doubt, a place where you can breathe easily, where the heart slowly opens, where the mind now bows. Make this your path, a pattern of return, a habit of quiet observation, a life not lived to escape, but to be close to one another with every breath. This is what the monastery of one breath offers you, not a break from the world, but a greater connection to it, present in every sense, very much alive. You are calm in the storm, not because the storm has passed, but because you have stopped looking for safety outside yourself. From the tranquility of a breath, where peace can be found without walls, we can see something that is not obvious. Stress is not always loud. It is not always in the body. Sometimes it is in our way of thinking. We are very firm in what we believe should happen, in how much we cling to thoughts, people, fears, and outcomes. It's like having your hand clenched into a fist. It wears us out without giving us a break. Tonight, we open that hand. Don't use force. Instead, understand. Because letting go is the first step to true rest. Working hard is not the same as being tense. Effort moves. It goes away. It changes. But tension stays. It stays there. It makes you aware of one thing. This has to happen. This has to stay the same. Or this has to be fixed. These ideas don't always scream, but they're not visible to the naked eye. They cause stress, make peace impossible, and cause worry. Buddhism doesn't tell people to stop worrying. It teaches them to worry without tensing up. Clinging is not obvious. When you want things to be a certain way, it hides. It stays hidden because people are afraid of losing things. need to be in control, and don't want to let time pass. It shows up when you think, what if this ends? What if I fail? Or why did they say that? These questions seem normal, but they're not. They're powerful. They trap you, and the mind can't rest when it's stuck. To be silent, you must first be aware of these little fists of thoughts, not to make them feel bad, not to fight them, but to really see them. Is this holding on? In a quiet voice. If the answer is yes, take a deep breath and relax and let it go. Letting go isn't about losing, it's about choosing peace over stress. Be aware that most of what we want and hold on to is made up of thoughts. It's not strong. It's not finished yet. We could hold on tighter, but that wouldn't guarantee anything. Control doesn't keep you safe. It just wears you out. Don't think this means giving up. It means surrendering to the things that cannot be forced. Life does not react to holding on. It reacts to opening up. Think about how a hand that clenches too tightly cannot receive. The grip is not gentle. It cannot truly feel. The mind is the same. Life cannot touch it when it is closed off. It just stays safe. When we let go of our thoughts, new things can come in. It's not indifference, but understanding. It's not laziness, but peace. Because energy returns when the need to control disappears. Thoughts become lighter. Making decisions is easy. Feelings disappear faster. Since there is no longer resistance, even pain feels less intense. It seems that the more we try to hold on, the worse things get. But when we let go, surrender, or open our hands, we realize that nothing was really ours. Not people, not plans, not even peace. They are events, not things. And when they are experienced freely, they heal. If we hold on to them, they drain us. Not understanding something doesn't mean you don't care. It means closeness without having something. Being fully present with what is, but letting it change, surrendering, letting it decide when to live and when to die. That's how our world moves. Trees don't hold on to their leaves. Rivers don't hold on to their water. Clouds can't stay in the sky. Yet everything moves beautifully. You can start to notice the little blockages in your own life. When you're angry, ask yourself, what am I holding on to? When you feel stressed, ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? Just when you start to get impatient, ask yourself, what outcome am I forcing? These are the fists. Once you see them, each one can begin to disappear. Letting go also means letting go of the way you see yourself. Some thoughts that put up walls are, I'm the kind of person who, or people always do this to me. They don't protect the self, they hide it. They also make you feel like you need to be consistent, correct, and loved. But none of that makes things better. Being able to change can bring peace. From being able to enjoy each moment without thinking about the past. Much of what Buddha taught is about wanting something. Not just things, but also who you are, things that are lasting and secure. But things change in life. They move. They are not predictable. And trying to keep them in place is like trying to hold water in your hands. It doesn't stay there when you squeeze harder. We can also let go of pain by opening our minds. It's just trying to hold on to a different moment in time when you feel regret. But we don't have to hold on to the past. We have to honor it learn from it, then let it go. It's like a boat that took you to the other side, but it can't follow you to shore. This softness is also important in relationships. People cling when they want to be understood, loved in a certain way, and always seen in the best light. But you can't be sure of any of that. People will see what they see. Things will get better, they will forget. And love is freer when people let go of how they should be. It's less heavy. It's more about being present than being in control. The desire to become wise can also become a fist. A search for spiritual identity. There is a silent impulse to be calmer, more alert, and less attached. But that stress is just another way of creating yourself. When you stop searching for peace, you will find it. When simply being there is enough. That's when the journey is not about getting to another place, but about being in the present moment. Tonight, let your breath show you how. Each inhalation fills your hand. Each exhalation opens it. Don't push, don't pull, just be there. The body knows how to let go. The mind just has to follow. Letting go takes skill. It takes practice. But every time you do it, you feel free in a way that nothing material can give you. That freedom that comes from not needing, clinging, or proving anything. And having freedom is a reward in itself. It is a peaceful happiness. Now everything changes. Not because the world is different, but because the person seeing it is kinder. It is a better space. It is not so scary. Now there is space between them after the hand has opened and the tension of holding has disappeared. A place that is calm, without goals or answers, but with what could be possible. And in that space, something unexpected becomes valuable. No more information, no more plans, no more trust. It is the lack of all those things. Being empty, not like a blank space, but like a kind of knowledge. Those who listen more than they speak. Those who give rather than seek. Tonight, we think of the empty bowl not as something to be filled, but as a way of being calm in itself. The alms bowl is more than just a useful object in Buddhist practice. It represents a mind open to new ideas, a mind open to life rather than demanding things from it. The monk walks with a bowl that is not meant to be taken, but to be given. To get something without using force. To accept what is given and move on when there is nothing. Inner peace begins with that kind of thinking, like a bowl that is held delicately and is open to whatever comes. The thing is, most brains are not empty bowls. They are already full. They are full of ideas, assumptions, conclusions, and plans. Lots of plans about how things should go, full of answers that are prepared before the event even begins. And a full bowl cannot receive anything. There is no more room. Therefore, the full mind does not notice when there is peace, when clarity calls, or when understanding whispers. There is no space. Practicing inner openness is starting to let go of things, not by force, but by facilitating knowledge. It means being okay without knowing the truth, being okay without having a plan, being able to handle not being in control. Not because those things don't matter, but because we need them so much that they get in the way of the peace we want. An open mind does not fight the unknown, it accepts it. It does not fill the empty space, it just listens. It does not name everything right away, it lets things happen. At first, it seems strange to be here like this, because the world likes people who are quick, confident, and smart. Quiet and humble minds, on the other hand, are the ones that can see further in Buddhist practice. Being silent is not what this means. Being open is being busy. It requires being aware. It requires being sensitive. You have to be willing to accept what is there, even if it makes you feel bad. It's okay if it doesn't make sense yet, because some facts do not come with explanations. They manifest themselves in the form of silence, like a change in breathing, due to a decrease in judgment. The empty bowl can also teach you humility. Being open means recognizing that you don't know everything, that you're not always right, that your vision may not be complete, that ceases to be a weakness and becomes a strength, because the bowl can always be filled. The one that is full cannot. To begin this activity, pay attention to how quickly your mind jumps to conclusions. When someone speaks, your mind already responds. When a problem arises, the answer comes quickly. But what if we don't need the answer right away? If we wait, listen, and remain open a little longer, what if we discover something deeper? This is very important in relationships. Most fights are not about what is said, but about not being heard. It is impossible to listen to someone when your mind is full of arguments against them, judgments, and stories about them. But when the mind is empty, you can listen fully, and that is often all it takes to heal. This is also true for learning. When you try to prove something, you don't get the deepest insights. These come when you are truly interested. There comes a time when you have to stand still and not know what to do. This way of learning is also silent. It's not loud. It takes place beneath the surface, in the breaks, in the silence, when someone is ready to be molded. An empty bowl doesn't mean giving up on being smart. It's about doing it right, about making space between what you know and what you discover, about learning to hold on to your opinions just enough so that they can change. This kind of openness doesn't just make you feel intellectual, because when the bowl is empty, there's more room for kindness, for depth, for patience. When your mind is closed, it says, "I've seen this before." When your mind is open, it says, "Let me see this again, with fresh eyes." And when you see something new, you don't filter it through assumptions. You accept it as it is. That's what mindfulness is all about. Not just noticing what's going on, but fully understanding it without adding your own thoughts. Being open also changes how you deal with problems. When there is pain, the mind asks, "Why is this happening? How do I fix it?" The open mind, on the other hand, says, "This is here." It accepts the pain without making it worse. It takes note of it. It decides what to do next. And sometimes, just by being in that space, the pain improves on its own. This emptiness can even lead to new ideas. The best ideas don't come when you're trying to solve problems, but when you relax, walking, doing the dishes, breathing. When the mind is clear, it can let in new light, like a clear sky. Not because it's cool, but because it's easy to understand. You can't force people to have this clarity. It's been tried. And being there invites it. Being humble, being empty. That's why many monks speak in questions rather than answers. There are many teachers who say, "I don't know." It's not because they're confused, but because they have enough clarity to let things show themselves when they're ready. Let your mind be that bowl tonight. No need to explain, just let it rest. You must loosen your grip on conclusions. You must not only be open to peace, but also to life, to breathing, to feeling, to the sound of nothingness itself, because that's when life begins to enter. Not all at once, but little by little, without noise. It has always been this way, and each breath refills the bowl, but this time with clarity instead of noise, with the understanding that comes from being silent, with facts that are known without needing to be said. Finally, the next step is not a leap, but a stillness. This is because the bowl of the mind has been emptied and the present has become more open, not as silent as before, but calm. One that remains still when the waves come. One that does not close, even when it is painful. Equanimity is not the absence of feelings, but the ability to remain stable in the midst of feelings. When the mind is like a calm pond, even the winds of feelings cannot create waves in it. People all over the world do not understand what peace means. Many think it means feeling nothing, like being numb or distant. Peace, on the other hand, is something much more alive. You don't have to hide what you feel. It's about letting all your feelings out without repressing them. It's about keeping your heart open, even when things get tough. Feelings come and go in waves. They surge with fear, crash with anger, swell with joy, and stir with sadness. It makes sense. People do this. Suffering is not caused by the wave itself, but by how the mind responds to it. The fear of escape, the desire to grow, the fear of feeling. Being calm breaks that loop. The body and mind learn to stay, not in a rigid way, but in a gentle, steady way, like a pond reflecting the sky without becoming the storm above it. To begin this training, pay attention to how quickly your mind works. Notice how it tries to explain, blame, or run away when it feels uncomfortable. These are habits, deeply ingrained ways of avoiding or controlling things. Peace, on the other hand, means staying with the feeling rather than running away from it, seeing it through to the end without trying to silence or amplify it, letting it be without letting it take over. This doesn't mean being cold. In fact, calmness makes room for love. Now that your emotions don't rule you, you can deal with them kindly. You don't have to say, "I'm devastated," when you can say, "Ah, there's sadness." You can also say, "This is anger," without living in it. You hold it in your mind, like a cup in your hand. You don't deny it or dismiss it. You simply see it clearly. The pond cannot withstand the rain. It receives every drop, yet it retains its shape. It does not fill with fear. That is what serenity is all about, being stable inside, being able to feel deeply without falling apart. To achieve this balance, you have to train yourself, not by repressing your feelings, but by learning not to let them dominate you. Start by practicing for short periods of time, a moment when you're not expecting it, a brief state of irritation, the tension before you speak. These are waves. Stop when you notice them. Don't reject them. Don't feed them either. Just pay attention. Do nothing while they pass. This will make you strong enough to handle bigger waves when they come. The nervous system reacts when calm grows. You feel less surprised. Criticism doesn't bother you as much. You're not as interested in praise or criticism because your heart is no longer based on the outside world. It all starts with awareness. When awareness is stable, it becomes a safe place that cannot be shaken. Being calm is very important in relationships. There is a part of our mind that wants to match or fight the feelings of others, but a balanced mind listens. You don't have to win or fix anything. It stays where it is. Both you and the other person feel calmer when you are like this, because it is unusual to find a mind that does not try to change the moment, but simply accepts it. Peace is valuable even when you're happy. It allows you to feel everything without clinging to anything, to really enjoy something without worrying about when it will end. Being even-tempered isn't the same as not caring about anything. It's being close without being attached. It means being aware that everything is okay and that everything will pass. This keeps things interesting. It makes life more intense. Feelings can teach you things. Getting angry teaches you boundaries. Being sad gives you depth. Fear makes you more aware. Joy helps people connect. However, you can only learn these things when you're not running. If the pond stays still enough to see it. There are things you can do to develop this. Body scans that pick up feelings without naming them. Being aware of your breath, which stays steady as your emotions rise. Even mantras that remind you that this too is a wave are important. But the most important thing is purpose. The choice not to run away from your own experience. Being calm is also what allows you to forget. You can let the pain improve when it doesn't affect you. You can see others better when you don't react so much. Not through the prism of your pain, but through the constant presence of being there. Being calm and at peace is one of the 4 immeasurables in Buddhist texts. It fills the heart with love, mercy, and joy. Without it, the others falter. Compassion becomes exhaustion. Joy becomes attachment. Kindness becomes dependence. But serenity holds everything together. It is stable, clear, and firm. Living this way doesn't mean you'll never cry, get angry, or break down. It means you'll know how to recover, how to take time to be alone after the storm, how to keep your hands still and touch your own heart, how to move and not move at the same time. That's why being calm isn't just a skill for monks. This book is for people who want to stop letting their feelings control them, for anyone who wants to feel without getting too wet, to worry without getting too tired, to feel life, but without it tearing them apart. Let the pond of your mind calm down tonight. Emotions should not be seen as flaws or threats, but as things that move you. They are fleeting, intense, but not dangerous to a mind that does not defend itself. It is not that the waves have ceased, but that the surface has stopped fighting. Let the silence return with each breath. From the calm, emotionless pond of equanimity, where feelings move but do not take hold, we now enter something deeper, something most people try to avoid, but which we all have to face. Decay, change, loss. These things are not obstacles to living. They give us life. They are not scary when we look at them tonight. We have a clear head. Because the things that break also teach us. What ends also reveals itself. In Buddhism, this is not considered morbid. It is known as wisdom. The dharma of decay is not about giving up, but about feeling better. Being at peace when your mind is not trying to hold on to a world that is bound to change. Life is always changing. Our bodies age. Friendships change over time. Thoughts change. Years pass. What begins eventually ends. However, it is not a tragedy. It is a rhythm. A part of you is freed when you accept that rhythm, not with sadness, but with tenderness. When you fight this truth, you feel anxious. You assume that things can be preserved, maintained perfectly, or kept for a long time. But peace comes when people stop lying. The mind wants to know for sure. It imagines what might happen in the future and makes plans to keep things the same. It fights against aging, worries about changes in relationships, and clings to short-term states. On the other hand, what wears down the mind is trying to stop change. You don't have to love every moment to accept change. It just means stopping fighting against time. That's when peace begins to grow. The outside world isn't the only thing that changes. Changes also happen inside. Thoughts disappear. Moods change. Desires change over time. Identity changes on its own. When you see this clearly, you are free. If everything is constantly changing, no event, no matter how intense, can stop you. Pain is no longer permanent. Neither is fear, nor is sadness. It brings peace, not because it says things will be okay, but because it shows that nothing stays the same. Pain can disappear. Even confusion improves. Control weakens as soon as the mind stops fighting against decay. And when things relax, a space opens up. A breath deeper than you can bear. A calm that is unaffected by what is happening. The body can teach you this. Cells change every time we breathe. Muscles tense and then relax. Skin ages. Hair turns grey. It's like trying to stop the tide, but the body becomes sacred when you accept that it will die. It doesn't last because it's fleeting. Every breath is a gift that won't come back. Every heartbeat is a warning to live in the present, because this moment will never come back. Giving up is not what the dharma of decay means. It is letting go of the idea that something was meant to last forever. And that includes how you feel. No thought is immutable, not even the ones that seem endless. Depression disappears, anxiety disappears, even rigidity changes over time. When time is free to move, it takes everything with it, even the weight you thought you couldn't lift. Being silent is not what this means. It means reacting without attachment. Being fully present even when things fall apart. Loving something deeply even though you know it will change. Being present doesn't make you feel better because it does, but because it respects the truth. Death is also part of this lesson, not just the big deaths that happen every day, but the small ones too. The end of a piece of writing, letting go of the sense of self, understanding that something that was once important is no longer necessary. Losses can make you feel like you've failed, but they're really just changes happening. And when they meet with tranquility, they reveal a deeper side of life, one where the heart is open, not because it's clean, but because it's become softer from letting go. Being soft is being strong. It allows you to move from one ending to the next without stopping, to face doubts without giving up, to face loss without anger, and to be grateful for what was, even when it becomes something it is no longer. This is always clear in nature. Leaves fall, fruit rots, mountains crumble. But there is no fear in that. Don't cling, just make changes. And somehow that brings out the beauty. It's still interesting to look at a flower that only lasts a day. No matter how brief a sunset is, it can still move the mind, because it is temporary, not because it is temporary. In this way, practice becomes memory. When you feel fear, remember that this too shall pass. Don't try to hold on to happiness when it comes. Enjoy it fully and then let it go. Don't panic when something breaks. Instead, look at the space it leaves behind. When something ends, ask quietly, what will begin now? Because in Buddhism, nothing is ever really lost. It just changes. This perspective changes the form of sadness. It doesn't eliminate it. You can feel it without being crushed by it. Cry, and then breathe deeply. Be sad, and then rest. Pain ceases to be a wall and becomes a door. Take a step. Anything. The more you trust it, the better you feel. Not right away. It's not perfect, but it's sincere. Even your own identity is affected by this. You are not the same person you were a year ago or last week. The mind changes, the heart changes, the things that matter change. It's not uncertainty, it's growth. Thoughts that cling to what they believe they are take up space, leaving room for change. It's also easier to forget with the dharma of decay, because seeing how much you've changed makes it easier to let others change too, to let mistakes fade away, to let scars heal, to know that there's no frost. It's not just an illusion, it's realizing that the rule that affects your life also affects all other lives. Let this truth calm you tonight. Don't try to hold everything together. Things must fall where they must fall. Time must shape what it must shape. Let the old forms of yourself fade into the background. Peace must not come from being in control, but from trust, because the heart does not fight against its own development when it knows that change is what it is. Now we will talk about something much more subtle, but just as powerful, the nature of thought itself. This is where the mind stops fighting change and begins to accept it as a normal part of life. Because what makes us feel something is not always as new or real as it seems. In fact, most thoughts are not true at this very moment. They sound like echoes, late responses, signs that are still alive from something that has already happened. When this is seen clearly, a new level of freedom emerges because mental noise ceases to be urgent once it is seen for what it is, an old sound. Thoughts come quickly and seem like facts. They say things, make predictions, and tell stories. Most people accept them without question, but the mind is not a tool that works in real time. This is reacting. It categorizes, analyzes, and waits. Often, what you think you are feeling in the moment is just your mind catching up and giving you a reason, a judgment, or a conclusion. But explanations are not the same as feelings. And once you see that pause, the control of thought weakens. This is too much, maybe a thought, but the moment itself may be calm. The mind may be screaming, "I've failed," while the body is just taking a breath. It may be replaying a fight that happened hours ago or rehearsing one that hasn't happened yet. They're not real. The sound is recorded. They are emotional waves that continue to circulate even after the wave has passed. That's why thought is not the enemy. It's something to observe more closely. with more questions. You don't run when you hear a voice in a cave. You know it's delayed, distorted, and shaped by the place it's traveling through. The same is true of the mind. Its functioning is based on history, on patterns, on fear, on desire. However, that doesn't mean that what it says is an accurate reflection of the present. Many thoughts are repeated for this reason. The mind does not generate new ideas, it reuses them. It replays memories. It rescues old stories. It interprets the same thing over and over again. It's not because the mind is bad, it's because it's trained. It's designed to protect, predict, and prepare. But those tasks often go too far into the future. They color it with fear. They drown it in judgments. They mix it with the pain of the past. Buddhism doesn't tell you to stop thinking. It asks you to think about your belief in your thoughts. To pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this thought a reflection of the now or an echo of the then? And you'll find that most of the time it's the latter. This space between thought and the present moment is where awareness enters. And awareness is what turns noise into understanding. Something changes when you do this all the time. There is less time to move. Thoughts are not suppressed because you don't give them immediate attention. You have a thought, but you don't do anything about it. Instead, you observe. You see how it changes, how it disappears, how the feeling that accompanied it improves just by being observed. That's when the mental noise begins to diminish, not through silence, but through space. Another truth this place shows is that a strong thought doesn't mean it's important. It's not always true just because it keeps popping up. When we're unsure about something, our mind tends to shout. It does it again when it's afraid. It makes a fuss when it feels ignored. But being present doesn't mean shouting. Presence is silence. The more you focus on the present, the clearer that silence becomes. The emotional effects are very strong. People keep talking about a comment someone made a long time ago. It's not that the mistake keeps happening, but that the sound hasn't gone away. People get stuck in these loops, not because they're stuck in the events, but because they're stuck in old thoughts about the events. Being aware of the waiting breaks the spell. You can see this even in the way people respond. The body tenses up before the mind can think of a reason. Even before the thought arrives, the stomach knots up. This shows that experience comes first, then perception. Often, perception is wrong. It's an assumption, something. You can let that story fade away like the wind once you see it slowly forming. This doesn't mean not thinking about it. It means interacting with it in a new way, gently, out of interest. You don't ask, what does this thought want me to do? But where does this thought come from? Often, it's just a habit, from the past. Out of fear, they try to put on a mask of logic, but you don't have to believe in all masks. This method also works well when speaking. When someone speaks, you don't respond. Instead, you pay attention to the thoughts that arise. You didn't do anything with the first response. You respond from a place of clarity rather than repeating like an echo. This makes communication easier. It's not so defensive. It's not so superficial. This awareness is sharpened through meditation, not by stopping the thought, but by showing how long it took to appear. When you sit down, your mind goes crazy. But as time passes, you can see that the waves come after the breath. The difference between a direct feeling and your mind's thoughts about it becomes clear to you. And when you realize this, peace begins to arrive. You understand that the moment doesn't need to be fixed, it just needs to be felt. Since thoughts are like echoes, they can also make people feel nervous for no reason. The original cause has passed, but the mind hasn't caught up yet. The old sound keeps ringing, and since you're not aware of it, you think the worry has to be right now, but it's not. It's a remnant, a delay, and it can be let go once it's seen. When you think like this, more kindness arises toward yourself, toward others. You know that most of what people say and do has to do with the past, not the present. Their response is based on echoes, just like you sometimes. And once you know that, it's easier to forgive and to wait. As your thoughts arise tonight, pay attention to their tone. Are they talking about what you see or something that happened before? Are they talking about the present or the past again? Let each one rise, fall, and resonate. Don't stop them, don't chase them. Let the sound go away on its own. In this way, the signal grows stronger, not because of the silence itself, but because the noise doesn't follow. The mind began to lose its hold on us as soon as we realized that our thoughts were nothing more than echoes, delayed, reactive, and often obsolete. It became clear that not all mental noise is real-time truth, and that we don't have to pay attention to everything that arises within us. Now, however, an even more subtle change is calling us forward. Beyond thoughts, words, and the silence they leave behind, there is something else. It is not nothingness, but silence with life. The deepest peace begins in that silence. It is not achieved by thinking more about it. It is achieved by learning to listen to what people do not say. There is a space between thoughts, just as there is a space between words. The mind is trained to search for meaning, break down information, and keep itself busy, so most people don't even notice it. But noise never brings peace. It is in the empty space before the next thought. It's in the stillness that contains each word, like the sky contains clouds. When you feel that silence, your mind calms down, not because it has solved a problem, but because it remembers something simpler, just being. This practice is not about eliminating thoughts. The important thing is to shift your focus. You begin to rest in the space around your thoughts instead of clinging to what they say. It's like being aware of the silence before a bell rings, the stillness that contains the sound, the silence between heartbeats. It's not an idea. It's something clear. It's no big deal. Once you realize it, it changes your life. The mind moves quickly because it believes that thinking is the only way to stay alive. It jumps from one idea to another, writing explanations, plans, and conclusions in the empty space. But none of that really helps you rest. The pause is the beginning of rest. It's not that the pause is empty, but that it's full in a different way, full of being there, deep, being fully aware and not following anything. You can start by simply listening, not to music, not to sounds, but to being silent. Take a moment to notice where the sound stops. Not just the fact that there is no noise, but also the quality of the silence that is there. That silence is not passive. It is awake. It is alive. And the more you focus on it, the less your mind rushes to fill it. The silence in your mind is the same. You are thinking when a space opens up, a brief moment without words. Many people miss it. However, that emptiness is the door. That is where you stop thinking and become consciousness itself. Thought is noisy. In presence, it is silent. But being silent does not mean there is nothing. Otherwise, it is full. Words are useful. However, space is the image. Without it, everything is confusing. When thoughts are limited to words, they sound like a song without pauses. Noise all the time. No rhythm. It's not pretty. You begin to understand music, not just sound, when you can feel the space between the notes. That's what this practice encourages. Not just more mental dialogue, but also awareness of the silence that makes thought possible. In conversation, this translates into pausing before speaking, not rushing to respond, not saying anything because of silence. This helps people understand better. It allows us to see things more clearly, understand, and most importantly, it allows both people to speak without making noise all the time. It's not the absence of sound that makes silence powerful, but the sound of sound itself. When you meditate, you may also feel that your mind is empty. Thoughts move while you sit. One arises, then another. However, there is a fraction of a second of nothingness between them. It's not sleepiness, but a state of alertness without any meaning. Don't move, don't force it, just observe it, because you chose not to follow your next thought. That's how the room gets bigger. It starts to seem normal. Now it's safe. Silence is something most people try to avoid because it feels strange. However, silence is not empty. It's just different. It doesn't make you laugh. It doesn't work. But it calms something deeper than words. Your nerves and brain react. Your breathing slows down. Your chest relaxes. Not because of what has been said, but because of what has not been said. That's where healing begins, because the pain starts to fade when you're not thinking about it all the time. The tension eases. There's no need to fix, describe, or label anything. Just be. Be there. And the heart speaks in that place. Not very loudly, not with words, but with a knowledge that doesn't need to be translated. Listening to the mental space can also help you become more patient, because you don't have to fill every space. You have to wait. You're letting things happen. You're still long enough to see what emerges on its own, not what your mind is trying to make happen. In that stillness, even deeper truths come to light. Not the ones you think, but the ones you hear in silence. This is also where new ideas come from. The best thoughts don't come from thinking all the time, but from being silent. The mind needs space to assimilate, think, and rethink things. But if it talks all the time, it can't receive. When there is silence, new ideas can emerge. Not because they are demanded, but because they ask for it. You can feel it without meditating for hours. Take a short break after each affirmation. Breathe deeply after thinking. Note the time between inhalation and exhalation. All these things are doors. They don't force you to do more, they make you more present. The more you go through them, the more normal they seem. Life itself begins to slow down after a while. Not because time has changed, but because you are not in a hurry to fill it. You are taking a break within it. Its rhythm is what you are listening to. And life has a much calmer rhythm than our minds allow us to see. It's not escaping reality. It's more involvement. Being silent doesn't mean running away from life. It means giving it your full attention, nothing else, no changes. You encounter the moment without thoughts covering it. It is naked and complete. Encounters like these change you. They don't calm you by dulling your feelings, but rather sharpen them. And this improvement leads to clarity. It becomes easier to make decisions. Things become easier. Relationships are strengthened. It's not because you've done more, but because you've spoken less. You haven't thought as much. And you've paid more attention to the silence, to your breathing, and to the quiet voice that spoke through the noise. Raise that voice tonight. Not with noise, but with your presence. Listen to each breath, not just the air coming in and out, but also the space between them. Let the space between your thoughts be a safe place. Not because it hides you, but because it shows who you are. A new kind of power begins to emerge in the space between thoughts, where stillness begins to take shape on its own. It's not the ability to push forward or try harder. It's not cold routines or forcing yourself to be quiet. It's something more meaningful, peaceful, and lasting. Self-control that doesn't hurt. Structure that doesn't get in the way. This is the path of the gentle warrior, the person who acts from kindness rather than fear, and finds a calm that doesn't break when things get tough. For a long time, force has been used to teach the mind to obey, to teach a lesson through guilt, to control through cruelty. Get up and shine. Do more. Don't feel. Work hard. And these approaches may work, but they don't usually bring peace. They leave behind tension, an inner pressure that never goes away, and the idea that you have to work hard to be worthy. However, the gentle warrior trains differently, not by shouting at the mind, but by guiding it gently, not by punishing those who fail, but by slowly returning to the path again and again. When discipline is based on kindness, it becomes loyalty. It becomes a rhythm rather than a struggle. It's not something you have to do. You choose to do it because you know it helps you stay calm. This kind of discipline isn't based on fear of failure. It's because I love having things clear. It's the quiet decision to always be there for yourself, even if you're not perfect. He wakes up not to conquer the world, but to face it. He sits quietly in the morning, not because he has to, but because it helps him remember who he is beneath all the noise. He doesn't move quickly. His words aren't wasted. He doesn't rush through life to prove how valuable he is. There is peace where he moves because he is there. This path doesn't reject structure, it reclaims it. He doesn't see ritual as a prison, but as a wall surrounding something sacred, a morning walk, a moment of quiet before dinner, a pause before responding. These aren't strict rules. They're a kind of ritual. In these places, there's room for understanding to grow. When you're aware of this, your mind stops racing. Being disciplined with compassion also changes how you deal with your own feelings. When the mind is crazy, a harsh voice inside wants to tell you to calm down. That's not right, it says. You're failing again. But the gentle warrior listens. He doesn't agree with everything the mind says, but he doesn't fight it either. It takes him a while to recover, with air, with steady steps. This doesn't mean that being gentle becomes lazy. The gentle warrior is serious, but they have a clear promise. It's not out of shame. They're not driven by the need to prove anything. It comes from knowledge. He has seen what happens to the mind when it is untrained, how it causes pain, how it clings, and how it panics. To maintain the practice, he stands firm, to regain peace, not to earn it. Conscious control also allows you to forgive. Not getting it right every day doesn't mean you've failed. The mind isn't punished when it wanders, it's simply observed and brought back. This return is how things get done. It's not about always being ready or always being there. This is how calm becomes stability, not by being in control, but by always having empathy. This way of thinking also changes how you treat others. When you stop expecting perfection from yourself, you stop expecting it from others. You know that everyone is doing their best. Everyone becomes smarter. Everyone forgets. And then everyone comes back. This gives your relationships room to grow. They improve. Tension disappears because you don't use force as much as you used to. Work is also done differently. Things still get done, but you don't have to tear yourself apart to do it. When you're tired, you rest. When you're ready, you move on. Not because you have to, but because your mind knows how to stay calm. This power is not like other powers. It's not flashy. It doesn't impose itself, but it remains. He or she also knows how to say no, not out of anger, but because they are clear about it, not because of rules, but because it feels right. They choose what makes them feel calm and let go of what makes them nervous. Doing so makes their life easier, not smaller, but more thoughtful. Every movement comes from awareness, not from need. Most people don't realize how powerful this is. With quiet determination, a practice of silence. It's not always visible, but it's there, in the way they breathe when things get tough, in how they keep coming back to the mat, even when they're not paying attention, in the way they are kind to themselves after something goes wrong. That's their fighting side. Not the fighter, but the person who always comes back to the present. With this kind of sport, the nervous system changes over time. The body never stops defending itself. The mind stops being afraid to be still. The heart slows down to a calm rhythm. It's not that things are easy, it's that our approach to challenges has changed. It's no longer about being in control, it's about being devoted. This habit is taught every time you breathe, no matter what happens, every time you sit down, every time you stop and don't move, every time you make space for silence instead of noise. Every moment is an opportunity to learn. Every round makes you stronger, and your mind stabilizes over time. Not completely silent, but quiet enough to listen, quiet enough to make a decision. Remember to be kind to yourself tonight. Don't judge yourself for what holds you back. Don't let it push you forward, let it accompany you. Stay calm when others shout. That's what makes you strong, not how loud you shout. From the quiet strength of understanding discipline, where presence is more important than force, we move to the smaller movements of everyday life, the ones people tend to overlook or blur. This is where practice grows stronger, not through big actions, but through small decisions. Choosing what interests you is one of them. It's not just a concentrated effort, but a gentle, constant care that permeates everything. This is how respect is shown with tea. How to use everyday life as a form of meditation, not by going on vacation, but by how you handle each moment. There is something sacred about simplicity. You live life to the fullest, not because it is exciting or profound, The act of preparing tea opens a door, not because of the tea itself, but because of what it reveals about the level of understanding behind each action. You put water in the kettle, you wait, you pour, you hold the cup in your hand. It is also helpful to pay full attention to each step. Things take longer, sensations intensify. The mind, accustomed to moving quickly, begins to relax. It's not about doing something strange, it's about doing the normal in a unique way, being present, carefully, moving silently. The task itself does not change you, it's the way you do it. It's the same when you put on your shoes, wash the dishes, or fold your clothes. When you do something with full awareness, it becomes a form of silence. This way of life is like the tea ceremony. There is a plan behind every step. No rushing. No, it's not silly. As you do it, a routine begins to form that takes you out of the chaos of overthinking and brings you into the present moment. The mind moves slowly along with the hand. The heart stabilizes when the cup is held carefully. For those who don't skip any steps, life ceases to be something to get through and becomes something to be with. This is how calm becomes a way of life, not just a goal of meditation. When you pay attention to your everyday life, your nervous system stays in balance, not only during practice, but also between workouts. The mind no longer jumps from one thing to another, but moves with the tasks at hand. The body stops preparing for the next thing and begins to relax into what it is already doing. The air also changes. When you pay attention to these little things, your breathing automatically becomes deeper. Your heart beats more slowly. Your mind stops talking, not because you've made it stop, but because it has slowed down. Deliberate attention does not push thoughts away, but slowly brings them back. The most important thing about this exercise is to remember it. Notice when you are drifting away and slowly return to what you are doing. That recovery is very important. That is the whole journey. The way you think about something is more important than the thing itself. This is true whether you're carrying a cup of tea, tying your shoelaces, or closing a door. Are you there, or are you in a hurry? Do you feel what you have in your hands, or are you thinking too much? However, not every moment will be profound. Some will be boring, some will be very noisy, some will be accompanied by anger or fatigue. But even those moments deserve your attention. You don't need peace to exercise. You exercise to calm yourself down. Sometimes the practice is simply being aware that you're not paying attention and being kind to yourself when you do. Paying attention isn't the same as forcing yourself. It's a call. Come back, it says. This moment is enough. Hearing that word over and over again throughout the day helps you heal. You stop searching for energy and start trusting the present. You stop needing special conditions to find the sacred in the everyday things that already surround you. This way of life also makes you stronger. Because paying attention keeps you going when things get crazy in life. You're not so quick in your mind. Your breathing is more stable. Your body feels better. Not because you're in control of everything, but because you're part of it. Completely. And that being with is a foundation. Everything changes when tea becomes meditation. It takes longer to eat. It gets quieter when you walk. People talk more deeply with you when you are fully there to listen, not for what they say. They will keep coming, but they won't be able to hold you back. You have taught yourself to come back, to stop, to feel. Even boredom changes. What was once boring now seems rich. What at first seemed like repetition becomes a rhythm. Paying attention shows that everything has a structure. Use warm water to wash your hands. How much a cup weighs. The sound of breathing. None of this is surprising, yet everything is alive, and being alive is the first step to being truly happy. This habit also helps you feel more grateful. You start to enjoy what you do when you are in the present moment, not as an idea, but as something you can feel. Being grateful is not always a big deal. Being fully present can bring a quiet sense of gratitude while you savor your tea. After listening to your footsteps, feeling your heartbeat, over time your attention shifts from the work to the taste. It changes the way you season your life. You take the time to enjoy each moment, not because it's great, but because it is. That's where calm comes from. Not from what's happening, but from how you actually experience it. Let this be your wedding tonight. The bowl can be anything you're doing, like listening right now, the cup of tea, the air, that rock. A soft sound, not silence, will help your mind rest. Be kind to what you're doing. Take it slow so you can really feel what's happening. Paying more attention to your everyday life, even to the point of making tea, is a gentle way to help your mind show you its internal patterns. It's easy to see the repetitive pattern once you're calm enough to see it. The repetition, the thought that arises not because it fits into the present, but because it hasn't let go of the past. These are dead thoughts. They're not real right now, but they're still scary. They repeat themselves without roots. The more you believe them, the more they make the present seem like a shadow of what has already passed. In fact, there is a moment when this becomes clear. You are alone or going about your business when, suddenly, a scene from the past pops into your mind. A mistake, a thought, a conversation that ended long ago, and, for a moment, it seems important. But if you look closely, you see that it is not now. It is a ghost, and you can only trust it if you do what it tells you to do. Ghost thoughts are hard to get rid of because they come with feelings. They sound guilty, angry, sad, or scared. They go unnoticed because the feelings make them seem real. However, they are not new. They sound like echoes. They repeat over and over in your mind. From that moment on, they didn't go away. They rose from the ashes of moments you haven't yet left behind. Buddhism says that the mind clings to pain as much as it clings to joy and identity. It does so because it believes it is necessary, not because it likes it. That reliving the pain will somehow make you feel safe. That looking back and seeing the mistake will prevent it from happening again. But here's the mistake. The mind's repetition is not always smart. Most of the time, it's a habit, and habits can be changed if you know what they are. Being aware is the first step in recognizing ghost thoughts. When a familiar loop appears, pause. Check to see if it's still there or if it's already passed. Is this thought part of this breath? Or am I thinking about something that's not here? That moment of doubt creates space, and the loop may not be able to hold on to it. It's also important to know this. These thoughts are not your fault. They are ways your mind has learned to keep you safe, prepare you, and process information. As long as they continue, They will continue to protect you and poison you. They say things like, "You should have known better," or "They were wrong and you never got over it." But these comments hurt you. They keep you stuck in loops that cannot be broken in the present. If you're not aware of the silence, ghost ideas love it. They need to be unconscious to stay alive. But they start to crumble when the light of mindfulness shines on them. They can't stay in the truth of the present moment, not because you've pushed them out. When you stop fighting them, they lose their power. When you stop replaying them, when you stop paying attention to them and making them real again. You don't need to fight them. They feed on the fight. Observe them. Come back and say, "Ah, this again." Breathe. Do it with your body. Make noise. Until now. They pass, not because you've won, but because you've stopped giving them words to repeat. Over time, this becomes easy. You begin to recognize the taste of certain thoughts. You can feel the pull of an old story, but you know it's just a story. You don't need to rewrite it. Stop reading it over and over again. And when a new pain arises, which it will, you deal with it differently, so that it doesn't become another ghost. You let it happen, feel it, and go through it. You work in real time. When the time is right, you cry. When the truth is ready, you speak. You don't bury it, because what you bury comes back to haunt you. What is felt is let go. Many people live with these ghosts around them, carrying the past into every room, interaction, and decision they make without realizing it. Not because they want to, but because they never learned to notice when something was repeating itself. They mix old pain with the truth of the present. However, they are not the same. Your inner space clears when you learn to see this. Your mind feels better. Feelings no longer pile up on top of each other. You stop seeing the present moment through the prism of the past. This changes the way you talk to others. Don't think that every tone is personal. You have to stop projecting old wounds onto new people. That voice from someone else stops living in your mind as if it was still there. Not because you hide it, but because you respect it and let it go. During moments of quiet, ghost thoughts often return. Not because the stillness causes them, but because the stillness reveals them. That's a gift, because you can only let go of what you can see. It's not a sign that something is wrong when your mind keeps returning to a conversation from 10 years ago. It's just a call to come back, to the present, to the truth that there is nothing to fix in that moment, because it is no longer there. Ghost thoughts can change everything about you, even who you are. "I'm not that person," or "I always mess up when," are not truths. They are thoughts that seem like rules. And identity is less tied down when those memories are not fed. As things happen, you cease to be the sum of them. You become the sum of everything you know. Here's what you need to do tonight. Don't chase away the ghosts. Be able to see them clearly. Is this a visitor from the present or a shadow from the past? You should ask yourself gently when something comes up. You don't have to get rid of a shadow if that's all it is. Just don't get caught up in it. Let it pass like smoke, like air coming in through an open window. That's right. Ghost thoughts are just echoes of things that have already happened. The mind can begin to breathe again, less heavy, less twisted. But there is something deeper than those loops, something less noisy, but much more powerful. The story of me that never ends. The identity that forms like a sand mandala, each grain carefully shaped by memory, feelings, culture, fear, and desire. It has taken a lot of work to create, and while it is beautiful, it is not meant to last. Tonight, we embark on that plan, not to destroy it, but to let it crumble. Not because we are sad, but because we want to find peace beneath the surface of who we think we are. Much of what we think about ourselves, we did not invent. It was given to us, repeated to us, and shaped us. For years, through the words of our parents, society's expectations, and the way people respond to praise or pain. And over time, those images have become stronger. I'm the anxious one. I'm the strong one. I always mess things up. I never finish what I start. These labels have become who I am, and who I am has become a habit. But it's not just the label that's dangerous, it's thinking that it will always be there. Tension is caused by fixed identities, because you're trying to stop something that isn't still. The mind changes, like everything else. However, it builds walls when it thinks, this is who I am. And those walls become prisons. They don't like change. They're afraid of being pushed. They protect rather than hurt. And that defense becomes exhaustion over time. Buddhism doesn't teach you how to improve. There has never been anyone fixed, it says. They are just feelings, thoughts, a tendency. They change shape like the wind. Like rivers, they flow. There is no real self, only the illusion of one, which is created by repeating things over and over and clinging to them. When this is seen clearly, something incredible happens. It becomes easier to be yourself all the time. You should stop acting for an imaginary audience. Stop protecting an image that doesn't have to be real. Peace invades you not because you have changed, but because you have given up the need to be something in particular. You don't feel empty after this. It makes you feel bigger. You are more present when you don't have a fixed character to protect. You are not so rigid. You are more sincere. Don't try to fit into a story. Just react to what is real. You don't need to be cool. You don't have to be the broken one. You are just what is true in this precise moment. And that truth can change with every breath. The pattern in the sand is a good way to think about this. In Tibetan culture, monks use colored grains of sand to make a mandala, which can take hours or even days. It's not easy. It's beautiful. When they're done, they sweep it away, not out of sadness, to understand that nothing is meant to stay, that beauty can live without strings attached, that peace doesn't come from keeping things the same, but from participating. That's how you see yourself. Over time, something has changed, something that people can appreciate. But there's also something that needs to be able to change. You're not the same person you were a year ago. You're not the person you were when you were a child. You're not even the same person you were this morning. The trick is to believe that there has only ever been one true version of yourself. Realizing this doesn't have to be disturbing, but liberating. Because growth is natural when we don't cling to a fixed image of ourselves. Giving something up is not failing when you change. When you change, you're not being fake. You're reacting to the present with a mind that isn't anchored in old plans. Even feelings are affected by who we are. If you tell yourself, I'm an angry person, you'll be angry. If you tell yourself, I'm weak, fear will start to feel normal. But those are just roles, not facts. Those parts aren't the whole book. And when the mind isn't anchored to a single story, it can find new answers, kinder ones, smarter ones. This also changes how we interact with other people. When you stop trying to change who you are, you stop trying to change others. As you stop labeling people as the difficult one, the selfish one, or the one who always lets you down, you become kinder to them, not as a practice, but because you see that other people change too. Giving up your identity doesn't mean giving up your boundaries. In other words, it means letting those lines be drawn by appearances rather than old rules. You can still say no, you can still walk away, but not out of ego, but out of truth. It's not to defend who you think you are, but to care about what the future holds for you. This flexibility also gives rise to new ideas. There are times when you can try new things without having to stay consistent. You might surprise yourself. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. You learn faster when you're not worried about your image. Instead, you focus on growing. It also makes change easier. Endings hurt less. There's less stress at the beginning. As long as you don't drag your heavy self through every door, you don't go too fast. The story has room to breathe. You see each day as a small piece of the mandala. It's not the whole thing, but a living design that is meant to change. Meditation shows you this little by little. If you sit long enough, you'll notice how the feeling of I changes. As you think about it, it becomes more intense. Breathing calms it down. Sometimes it just disappears, leaving only peace in its place. A nameless existence, a quiet place without boundaries, a mind without disguise. The weakness of fear also disappears in this place. Because we are very afraid of ourselves, afraid of suffering, afraid of being seen, afraid of not having enough. However, those fears don't hold on when we don't hold on so tightly to ourselves. They pass like air coming in through open windows. Not because you're not attached, but because you're no longer holding on to anything so tightly. Let your story be sand tonight. Let it fall to the ground. Scatter it, not to erase it, but to set it free. You are not the same person you were yesterday. You are not the person your thoughts make you believe you are. You are not your pain. You are not your past. Something soft is what you are, something that sounds more like a sigh than a name. When the self does not cling to names or stories, there is a gentle release of identity. At that moment, something deeper and more primitive begins to call, not inside the mind, but from outside, from the body, from the deepest places, from the places where you cannot think and only hear music. The nervous system can understand this rhythm even if it has no words. Tonight, we breathe not to control our bodies, but to connect them to the rest of the world. We learn to breathe slowly, deeply, and quietly, as trees do. This helps to calm not only the mind, but also the body that houses it. There is something about trees that calms you even before you have a thought. In a different way, their silence shows how intelligent they are. The way they move, controlled only by the wind, the sun, and time, makes you want to slow down. One that doesn't need to rush. It's not a struggle. There's no show. This rhythm is also part of you. It's the rhythm your breath knew before you taught it to speed up. Although words are important, rhythm is felt more deeply in the nervous system. It speaks to the breath, and the body goes into alert mode when the breath becomes fast and rapid, even if there is no danger. The mind begins to look around. Muscles tense up. Thoughts become more rigid. However, The signal changes when the breath slows down. Safety returns. Presence awakens again. Look at nature. It's one of the best ways to remember to breathe slowly. You never forget. You can feel a rhythm in nature when you watch the grass sway in the wind, the leaves move, or the branches of a tree rise and fall. It's not a machine. It's not forced. It moves slowly, but it's alive. In your body, the rhythm is the same, but noise, worry, and overstimulation take you away from it. You don't get it right every time you come back. It's a process of accumulation. It's not about copying the shape of trees when you breathe with them. It's about moving at the same speed. Be aware of how long it takes for a branch to rise and let your breath rise with it. It's not about controlling your breath, but letting it simply last longer, letting the air out with the wind, slowing your body down by letting the heartbeat of the earth guide you. This is not visualization. I call it training. A biological process in which systems work together. When you put two clocks side by side, they eventually synchronize. The same thing happens with your nervous system and the environment around it. That's why being outdoors is good for you. It's not because of what you do there, but because of what you don't do. You need to slow down, stop tensing up, stop doing things, and your breathing becomes smart again, like it used to be. The mind begins to calm down as this routine returns, because breathing changes the way we think. Thought comes after calm breathing. If you keep your breathing steady, you will calm down. Over time, this stops being a habit and becomes the norm. From now on, you will live at a slower pace, a calmer home frequency, one where the body feels safe and the mind does not seek danger. Trees take their time. They don't fix things too much. They don't try to be perfect. They respond based on what's there. They move when the wind blows. They open up when the sun shines. They rest when it gets dark. This is knowledge in motion. You have this same knowledge too. It's just been thought away, out of habit, quickly. Breathing deeply with trees is not a way to escape real life. It is about moving to the rhythm of a beat that contains everything. One with happiness and sadness, shadow and light. One that can handle change without being upset because it knows how to adapt, how to return, how to put down roots. You can practice this anywhere in nature. Get comfortable near a tree. Go to a river and stay there. Go out into the countryside. Don't try to calm yourself. Observe, feel, breathe deeply. Let your body return to its normal rhythm. Let your breath flow for a while without counting. Look away. Listen to the wind on your skin. Don't tense your muscles. Let them go. You can feel this even in the city. All you need is a tree, a piece of sky. For a second, feel the sun on your hands. You don't need silence. You don't need space. You just need to be there. The rhythm doesn't depend on where you are, but on how much attention you pay. It's not a way to fix something. It means returning to what isn't broken. You're not teaching yourself to breathe, but breaking the bad habits that prevented you from synchronizing your breathing. And when you regain your balance, you feel very calm. It's something to remember. It's like coming home. This changes the way you feel over time. Feelings rise and fall, but they never overwhelm you. You don't collapse when you're sad. You don't cling to joy. Because the air you breathe has taught your body that the waves are safe. That rhythm can hurt, that calm is not the absence of feelings, it is the gentle place where feelings are sheltered. In addition, time begins to feel different. Minutes lengthen when they are in tune with your natural rhythm. Hours soften. There is more time between events. There is less rush. There should be more space between words, more time between tasks. Life ceases to be something to be regained and becomes something to be experienced. This is not a linear action. It is the time of year. Your energy changes, just like the trees. Your attention shifts. And when you respect that pattern, you stop trying to do things. You take a break when you need one. You do what needs to be done when the time is right. As a result, your nervous system will remain more stable, healthy, and able to be present. This habit also changes how you interact with other people. Stop adding to their stress. Don't break their silence so quickly. Hold space like a tree holds shade. You don't have to fix anything or talk right away. Your calmness spreads to others, not because you want it to, but because your breathing helps others slow down too. Tonight, make this your game. Don't breathe deeply, don't breathe heavily. Just listen to the music of nature. Breathe deeply as the leaf rises. Exhale as the branch falls. Let nature set the pace. Let silence teach you. Let each breath be a connection to a rhythm that makes you feel calm. Now that your breathing has returned to its natural rhythm, marked by the slow movement of the trees rather than effort, something deeper begins to settle in. A calmness that comes from not having to do so much, but from not having so many needs. The nervous system no longer has to work so hard to keep up. The mind no longer has to explain every moment. The inner desire also calms down, not just between thoughts. At that moment, another truth becomes clear. Peace cannot be found by getting more. It can only be found by realizing that you already have enough. This is the robe of sufficiency, the heart of Buddhist humility, and the end of desire for things you don't need. When you feel that you are missing something, you become restless. Your mind wants more peace of mind, more luck, more attention, a better understanding. But every time you achieve it, the moment is gone. The more you run, the less you stop to rest. Peace slips away with time, and people don't even notice, not because they suffer, but because they want it. In Buddhism, monks wear a robe that represents simplicity. More than clothing, it is a message, a reminder. It represents letting go of the superfluous. Getting out of clutter, because it is difficult. The call is the same, even if most people don't wear a robe like this, to live in a way that says, this is enough, not as a weakness, but as a freedom. The robe of sufficiency is not made of fabric. It is made of choices, of not having to show off, of not looking all the time. You don't have to use every moment as a stepping stone to the next. It is made of being content with what you have, of having the courage to stay in the present moment, and of being able to see how much energy is wasted on needing. The world makes people always hungry for improvement, for answers, for attention. And while wanting is normal, wanting all the time is painful. It breaks the mind. It adds stress to moments of calm. It makes life seem like a race that never ends. But space returns when people embrace simplicity, not as minimalism for its own sake, but as presence over possession, Thoughts slow down, breathing deepens, and my heart feels better. Giving up everything is not part of living simply. It means not letting the things that don't matter take away your peace. It means choosing what helps you clarify what makes you want something. It means being careful when you say yes. It's easy to say no. Knowing when enough is enough, not because there is nothing more to desire, but because more will not make things better. Little by little, you begin to realize this. When one cup is enough, when one answer is enough, when one breath is enough, and the word enough creates space, it lessens the pressure, it relaxes the nerves, it allows the moment to be complete without needing to be improved. You won't stop growing because of it. Growth continues, but it's not because you don't have enough. It's not out of shame. It's formed by being there. It's not because you're empty that you plant seeds. It's because life goes on. And when you know you have enough, every step is a gift, not a demand. Relationships can change too. You no longer need other people to feel complete, to always agree, to always act a certain way. Now that love isn't a deal, you can love more easily. That's a sign of how full you are. And that kind of love doesn't suffocate you. It fills you with air. Keeping things simple can also change how you deal with pain, because it's easier to stay when you don't need to leave so much. You no longer need every moment to be good. You're not always negotiating with the present to make it better. It's easy to accept what is, and rest comes from that encounter. Being simple is good for the mind, because being complicated is bad for it. Every meaningless choice takes you away from what's important. Every extra thing you have consumes energy. Every false need increases stress. But the noise disappears when you put on the robe of sufficiency, when you start living with what serves you instead of what distracts you. The clutter clears, and what remains is closer to the truth. It doesn't have to be perfect. What it takes is honesty. Look kindly at what you've been seeking. Find out how much it costs you. Find out if wanting it has calmed you or made you anxious. If it's the latter, choose a different pace, one that meets your needs without giving in to your desires. You can start anywhere. By taking a moment to add one more thing, by asking yourself if the next yes helps you stay calm or takes it away, by making a little more space in your day, in your mind, and in your home. Not to please others. Let's get back to what's real. It goes without saying that this is happening. You have to live it, in peace, with tranquility, the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you treat what you already have as if it were enough, because it is. When you do this all the time, rest is no longer a luxury. It is the beginning. It is not a break from being, but a way of being. You'll have a place to come back to when life gets loud again, which it will. Not a place outside, but a way of feeling inside. The robe was enough. It is when you don't need anything else. How clear it is to let go before you have to. The calmness of knowing what's important. Take this robe tonight. Take it and think about it. Let it loosen your grip on wanting to improve things. Let it tell your nervous system, we're here. And from now on, let every breath be a sign of trust that this moment is complete. It is already full. A quieter voice begins to emerge from the stillness growing in the robe of sufficiency, where desire fades and presence grows. It is not a voice of punishment or rejection, but of guidance. It does not ask for more. It wants something deep. It does not shout. It shows itself. The longings are still there. People are beginning to see them for what they are. Alerts. They are not problems to be hidden, but opportunities to grow something deeper. Now, we do not judge these signals, but pay attention to them. We do not feed the anxious mind, but the monk within us, who has always been searching for something sacred beneath all the noise. Desires don't appear out of nowhere. They appear because there is something inside you that wants to be noticed. But the mind often misinterprets the signal. It thinks that being hungry means you need food, that being bored means you need stimulation, that sadness means you need to run away. So it clings to the nearest thing. Sugar, swiping your finger across the screen. It keeps you away. However, these things don't satisfy you. They just calm you down. Since the need was never satisfied, the signal keeps appearing. Buddhists don't teach us to fight desire, but to understand it, to face it and deal with it, to get to the bottom of it. Wanting something is not the enemy. The messenger is here. It always says the same thing. Take care of something. The things you desire become less crazy when you start listening deeply. They stop pointing outward and start pointing inward. They start leading you toward loyalty instead of away from it. Focusing on devotion is not religion. It's about relationships. It means putting your energy into something that adds meaning rather than something that makes noise. It means turning your desire into an interest. Don't ask, how can I get what I want? Ask, what is this really asking for? That's how desire becomes clarity, when you stop feeding it easy things and start feeding it real things. This reaction starts with awareness. As soon as hunger arises, you pause, not to stop it, but to see it happen, to hold it, to really feel it, not just follow it. It's yours. It helps you breathe. You ask yourself, what does this craving mean? And often, the answer lies in the feeling, not the thing, in the break, in not paying attention to it. The inner monk does not turn away from the body, it honors it. It does not make the mind seem bad, it teaches it. And it does not ignore the need to eat. It improves it. It turns it from an addiction into a passion, from having to do it to having the option to do it, from being empty to being full. Instead of forcing them, they were told what to do, giving in to the part of you that wants peace more than sugar. I value connection more than comfort. Goals are more important than fun. Because the mind is used to constant stimulation, cravings often arise when nothing is happening. The mind goes crazy when there is silence. It needs something to hold on to. If you stay, breathe, and listen, you will discover that the urge is not hunger. It's a need to be present, to keep the peace, to make sense, and the desire disappears when you give it that. It has been heard, not because it was broken. This is the practice. Turn your desire into a question, not, how do I get rid of this? But, what does this want me to see? Then, give it that. Breathe, take a walk, pray, pay attention to your body for a moment. Gently touch your chest. You need to return to something that feeds the monk in you, not the dealer, the addict, or the pursuer. The calm one, the person who doesn't need so much, but lives more fully. Over time, this changes how you feel about all kinds of desires. You don't reject them, you interpret them. The desire to connect becomes a need to be honest. The desire to do well becomes a call to help others. The need for warmth becomes a message to take things more calmly. Each one becomes a door. They all become teachers. This also changes the way your nervous system works. When you give in to a desire instead of giving in to a quick reward, your body stops seeking false highs. It begins to stabilize. It sets boundaries. You no longer need dopamine spikes to feel good. You need to be there. Presence doesn't break either. It keeps going. To feed your inner monk, you need to create habits that keep you centered, not out of stress, but because they respect you. When you wake up, you breathe deeply and focus on the present. You pay attention while you eat. You don't walk with haste. You speak from your center. These things don't come easily to you, but you do them because they feed a part of you that junk food could never feed. When you fail, when you give in to old impulses, you don't collapse in shame. You don't collapse. You come back. "Oh, I fed the wrong part today," you say. "It's okay. I'm still getting better at listening." And then you come back, to be silent, to make a decision, for the part of you that moves slowly. This method isn't strict. It's gentle. It doesn't impose rules. It gives you space. There's room to respond instead of react. There's room to choose the best food. To know when you're feeding fear or reflection. To be aware of when you're seeking approval or returning to the present. It takes time for cravings to disappear, because you have fed the hunger behind them, not because you have weakened. You know how to give yourself what you need: peace, purpose, love, and connection. This stops the desire for something, like a child who has finally been hugged. Tonight, make this your game. Don't fight the urge, don't make it seem bad, but really see it. Find out what it wants. Take it to the well and let it drink from something real. Breathe. A truth. A stillness that lasts. As the desire to eat softened and gently redirected toward more nourishing food, a new kind of silence began to grow. Not the silence that comes from denial or not being present, but the silence that grows stronger when the search ends. When the mind stops looking for something to finish, it is full. In that stillness, you can see something else. An old habit that hurts you silently, but often goes unnoticed. Being stuck in the I all the time. The idea that there is a fixed, individual self that needs to defend itself, show itself, act, and solve everything before it can rest. But tonight, there is nothing left to solve. Sleep in the shadow of the Buddha, where the non-self is not an idea to be understood, but a gentle place to lay down everything you have carried. One of the most misunderstood ideas in Buddhism is that of no self, or anatta. It doesn't mean that you don't have experiences or that nothing exists. It's a gentle nudge away from the false belief that there is a core within you that never changes and is always in charge. And when that false belief disappears, peace begins. Because what kept you awake wasn't what was happening that day, it was the feeling that everything was happening to you, that you had to fix everything, and that you had to carry the weight of being someone. But control breaks down if you allow the idea of yourself to fade away, even just a little bit. You still have thoughts, but they are not yours. Feelings are real, but they don't define you. There is no owner. No one owns anything. There is no fixed character to protect. Life goes on as usual. That's when the body begins to rest, not just physically, but also deep down. Because if there is no self to protect, what could the self defend? To get in strong before bed, this is the way. Because stories are more interesting at night. You feel bad. You make plans. You judge yourself. You replay what you should have said or done in your mind. But each of those stories needs a main character called me to work. Without that character, the plot falls apart. The mind falls apart. Now there is only peace. You shouldn't try to erase your past or act as if nothing happened. It's about letting go of the connection. It's time to switch from "I failed" to "failure arose," from "I'm anxious" to "anxiety is present," and from "I must fix everything" to "this moment is happening." Each change removes a hook from your identity, and every time I unhook myself, I get closer to the dream. Identity is considered to be something invented, even in science. Memory, language, and consciousness are what make up our sense of self from a neurological point of view. It has a function. It is useful. It allows us to function. However, it is not fixed. It is not real in the same sense that pain or breathing are real. People believe it is a face, when in fact it is a mask. When you learn this, not mentally but through experience, your heart softens. You understand that you are not your name, nor are you the things you do, not even your parts. The voice in your head that is worried is not you. You are the place where the voice comes from. You are the calm that watches the story unfold. Fear moves away from that place, not because it has been defeated, but because it has no one to cling to. Try not to think about your day when you go to bed. Instead, watch your thoughts as they flow through your mind. Let them fade away like clouds without giving them a name. There is no need to say "my body" or "mine" when you feel your body or your breath. Just let it be. It is not yours. It is not about you. It is just there. Once the nervous system is freed from its identity, it begins to function normally again. The muscles relax on their own. Effortlessly, the breath becomes deeper. Because you no longer have to be someone, carry something, or achieve something even when you sleep. You no longer have to hold yourself up. Someone is holding you up. Being yourself is not emptiness. It is freedom. Dissociation is not what it seems. It means being close to everything because there are no walls between you and others. The world comes in when the I steps back. Sound improves. You breathe better. It is enough for each moment. Like this one. You don't need to practice being someone else tomorrow. You don't need to replay who you were today. People dress up. It's temporary. It was useful at the time, but we don't need it anymore. When you lie down in the shadow of the Buddha, you let go of your roles, your past, and your future. What remains is a presence so still that it doesn't need a name. When you remember your non-self, even your dreams change. The mind doesn't have to keep repeating stories of conflict and danger. It can move, float. There is a knowledge that does not separate the experience from the person experiencing it. It becomes the breeze, the wave, peace, This should be your last practice for tonight. It's not useful. It's not a fix. It's enough to know that you don't have to force yourself to sleep. You won't have to chase sleep. It will come to you when no one is around. The body will be in bed. The rhythm will be set by your breathing. Peace will be in the space of no self. You have nothing left to prove. There is no longer a you to fix. There is no you who needs to resolve anything before you can rest. Now, all that is needed is to be there. Open, not full, complete. As the night progresses, that presence will gradually lull you to sleep. The body finally surrendered when it reached the weak spot where identity crumbled and there was no one left to carry the weight of the day. For peace to come, thoughts did not have to stop. They simply lost their control. The need to be in charge, to explain, or to switch to something else vanished into thin air. Thoughts may continue to arise even as sleep approaches. They move, return, and fade away. At this point, one last question arises. What would happen if all thoughts could be seen without being judged? What would happen if the mind did not fight or respond, but became a clean mirror? This is a Zen figure of speech, the mirror that shows things clearly. It does not like one image more than another. It does not cling to appearances. It does not fight against what comes in. A clean mirror can see clearly not because it tries harder, but because it adds nothing else. No stories, no analysis. There should be no mental dialogue about what the reflection should be like. True calm is not a mind that has no thoughts, but a mind that does not judge those thoughts. The first thing that breaks the peace is judgment. Not the thought itself, but what comes after it. There is a thought. It may be sadness, fear, or a memory. The mind immediately starts talking. This shouldn't be here. Why am I still thinking about that? What's wrong with me? That said, none of those comments are the original thought. They are dust. Moreover, the more dust that falls, the harder it is to see. Not judging what you see does not mean you are inactive. The goal is to be accurate, to know the difference between what arises on its own and what the mind adds on top of it. This is the difference between being in pain and being in suffering. Pain is the first sensation. Pain is everything the mind makes of it. Pain is still pain, but it doesn't stay when the mirror is clean. Like a cloud reflected in water, it passes. To achieve this clarity, silence is not necessary. It is necessary to be honest. Saying to yourself, "A thought has come into my mind," does not mean you are broken. Saying to yourself, "There is tension," does not mean you are failing in your attempt to be calm. It is the mind returning to its basic state, which is not empty of thoughts, but free of struggle. You can do this at any time, right now. As you listen, thoughts pass through your mind. Some are clear, others are tangled, but none need to be judged. They don't need to be fixed. They don't need to be labeled. There's no need to be frightened, chase them, or cling to them. Just see them, like the wind moving across the water, like the shadow moving over a rock. Just see them and let them be. This changes the nervous system, because it is not the thought itself that stresses you, but the struggle against it, the stress of opposition. However, when you let go of the thought and see it in the mirror, the body remains calm, the breathing remains the same. You can still use the system. In this way, even so-called bad thoughts lose their power. Anger is just a heartbeat. Fear is just a signal. Shame is just a sound. However, there is no way to believe or value them, so they lose their form. They fade away like noise, not like rain. The mind remains clear. There is nothing in it because nothing sticks to it. That is why Zen teaches you to be present without choosing. It is not about feeling nothing, but about stopping pulling and pushing. Let joy come without clinging to it. Do not run away when you feel sad. See both as changes in time and not as parts of yourself, because you are the mirror, not what it says in it. Thoughts may continue to arise, that's how they are, but you don't have to follow them, you don't have to think about them, you don't have to figure out what each one means. Some thoughts are just repetitions of others, some are old habits, some are noise, but until you say they are true, none of them are. They don't make you who you are unless you let them. The way you talk to yourself changes when you see without judgment. The inner voice calms down. The harshness disappears. You no longer attack the messenger. You no longer assume that every thought is a flaw. Today, you value your awareness more than your analysis. Over time, this confidence grows. It becomes a habit. As soon as you start judging, you see it too. You don't reject it, you just observe it. And even judgment loses its power when seen clearly. It becomes just another image, just another thought to let go of. It's especially important to be clear about this before going to bed, because thoughts tend to get tangled up at night. The mind starts going round and round. The critic gets louder. Fears start to creep in. But those thoughts don't matter so much if you're able to stand in front of the mirror and watch them without responding. When they're not there, they become background noise. This is what you should do while you rest tonight. Let all thoughts be seen, even if they don't mean anything. Each one should pass without being pushed or picked up. Let your mind be like a mirror. It should show everything and hold nothing back. Not because it doesn't want to, but because it's not necessary right now. There is no better way to rest than this. It's not about having no thoughts, but about understanding nothing. Give yourself permission to see the world as it is without turning it into a problem. This is the place where the mind truly stops moving, not by closing off life, but by making space for it. Clean the glass, breathe slowly. Don't worry about events. You are not your thoughts. The person you see in the mirror is not who you are. You are the place that sees everything clearly, silently, and forever. Now that things are clear, we can rest. Stop searching. Don't solve anything else. Only the light of consciousness exists, showing how breathing, thoughts, and sleep come and go. From the clear mirror, where ideas were no longer judged, the mind became silent. It was not empty, but free. Free to observe without responding. Free to have any thought without giving it any meaning. Something strange, not an answer but a question, arose from the silence. One that did not need to be resolved and caused no stress. It was just a quiet presence, a puzzle, a blank space. There is peace in that place. What the mind needs most of the time is not an answer, but the freedom not to know. This is the koan for being calm. How to leave questions unanswered and find a sense of calm deeper than clarity could ever give you. A koan in Zen Buddhism is not like a puzzle that can be solved. This question aims to take your mind out of the habit of wanting answers. In theory, it makes no sense, because the goal is freedom, not logic. And the mind is free when it stops looking for answers and begins to rest in what is already there. Most problems come from trying to find peace. The mind asks, "Why did this happen? What do you think they'll say? What should I do? What if I fail?" And the mind goes crazy when those questions aren't answered right away. It goes round and round, in circles. But the truth is, you don't have to answer most of these questions. You have to keep them. That doesn't mean you have to solve them, because people want to know everything, and that's often what prevents peace. It's hard not to know something. It's a sign of weakness, of giving up. The nervous system calms down when you stop looking for an answer. The heart no longer has to fight itself. Breathing becomes fluid again. The body no longer has to endure anything, because it's not the question itself that stresses you out, but the idea that you have to find the answer right now. Don't avoid the question by leaving it there. The fact that it's there means admitting that thought alone cannot always solve problems. There are things that cannot be defined because they are too big, too subtle, or too mysterious. They have to be lived. And in that living, sometimes the answers appear, not because they have been imposed on you, but because your mind was calm enough to receive them. It only takes one change to start this practice. When a question arises, don't chase it. Take a deep breath. Take a break. Feel the need to resolve it. Stay where you are instead of following it. The question was not a command. It was more like a friend. Breathe in and breathe out and say, "This belongs here too." Over time, this changes your way of thinking. The fear of the unknown is no longer a threat to you. It begins to look like a gateway, a line between the old and new ways of being and seeing. And from this, something more honest can emerge, something that is not based on fear or haste, but on time and depth. This also changes the way you solve problems. You don't rush to fix things, but start by listening. You wait. You believe that knowledge doesn't always shout. It whispers a lot, and it only speaks when the noise of your search is low enough for you to hear it. Leaving questions unanswered also softens relationships. You stop asking others to explain things to you. You no longer need every conversation to have an ending. Like life, people are difficult to understand at first. They don't always make sense. They don't have to. Love doesn't need to understand something completely. It depends on being there. Things start to change even in the way you relate to yourself. Your past is no longer a question. You no longer have to explain your feelings. Don't turn every question into a flaw. You begin to give yourself the same gift, the grace of not knowing, of not being finished, of moving forward. The main idea of the koan is not to confuse, but to invite. You can rest in the middle of it, not at the beginning, not at the end, just in the middle. Here it is, where nothing is resolved and everything is still alive, where questions are not obligations, but friends. In this place, mystery is not something to run away from, but something to experience fully. It is in your body. You breathe more slowly when there is silence after a question. Your chest relaxes. Your shoulders tense less, because there is no longer any pressure to solve anything. There is only space, space that allows you to be, even when you don't know what to do. Giving up understanding is not what this practice is about. It means not being in a hurry, letting it grow, letting it come when it's ready. Because you don't have to answer all your questions right now. Some questions may never be answered, and yet life goes on. You keep breathing. You keep fitting in. Let this be your place of rest tonight. There is no need to be afraid of questions. They should sit beside you like old friends. You don't have to fix them, just live with them. What will happen tomorrow? Please don't answer that question. Why do I still feel this way? Let that question rest. What if I never understand? That question must be answered by something more powerful than thought. When you are still, your mind doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to win anymore. It doesn't have to keep a story safe anymore. It's okay to rest, because solutions don't bring peace. That freedom comes from not needing them. This is where you need to sleep tonight. Take a deep breath and let it move you. Let it come in and out like waves on the shore. Don't name it. Don't make it yours. Just pay attention to it. Just accept it. Every breath you take is not yours, but part of something older, bigger, and deeper than your body, your mind, and yourself. This is where peace arises naturally, because the only thing that needed to be worked on was protecting the idea of me. Once that idea softens, the whole system can breathe more easily. You finally let go of the idea that it was your job to fix it, not because you've fixed anything. Now we will continue from this breath that belongs to no one and that flows through everything, not toward more thoughts, but toward the empty space beneath them. It is not absence that makes something still, but presence without control. After 3 hours of returning, breath by breath, thought by thought, moment by moment, you have arrived at a place where not many people dare to go: silence. There is a calm that does not need stillness, but lives there anyway. You have lost yourself in lessons that are not meant to be learned, but to be felt. Between the silent gong that taught your mind to listen to what is not said, and the robe of sufficiency that let go of desire, you have learned to let go of the past and the present, to bend like bamboo and feel the ground within your mind. You have learned that you don't have to accept everything you think or answer every question. That peace is not something to be sought, but found when you stop calling every breath, every thought, and every feeling mine. You spoke to the ghosts. You saw your identity crumble like a drawing in the sand. You remembered how to breathe with the trees, how to feed your inner monk, how to sleep without turning off your mind. You understood that you never had to fight it. Now you can rest, not because everything is fine, but because you are fine with how things are. The mind does not need to understand. The self does not need to improve. You don't have to own your breath. It is enough to be calm. Now is enough. You are enough. If these lessons have moved you deeply, leave a comment below. Write, "I am calm now." It can be your gift, your reminder, or your way of breaking the loop. Follow the channel and click the bell if you want more journeys like this one to help you not only fall asleep, but also wake up in a new way. There is more peace out there. Get enough sleep, light yourself up, and thank you for joining us on this journey.